Doing well, doing well. How are you?
I haven't seen you in such a long time.
Yeah,
I was thinking of you the other day, actually. I'm glad you're doing well, friend.
yeah. So we initially set up a panel that fell through. Then we rescheduled another one and just kind of like sent a bunch of last minute invites out. And I think we got one more that should be coming soon, but I don't know how long it's gonna take for him to get here. So we'll we can just jump into it in the meantime, and and then we might even let some other people jump on if they want to later on. But so the plan is to talk about Hasan and Cenk Uyghur's ETAs getting canceled, and then if we have time, get to Graham Platner after that as well, and the New York Times hit piece that was published about him yesterday. But if first you guys want to go around and just introduce yourselves, starting with Prime.
Oh, hi. My name is Prime. Prime Kai. On a YouTube, Twitch channel where we do debates. And it's a lot of fun. So come check us out at twitch.tv/. Prime Kai, PRIMECAYES. Love to have you. Thanks so much.
Awesome, and Radel. Or is it Radel? Radel?
Rodell.
Radel. All right,
Yeah.
Radel.
My name's Rodell. I am a host of a podcast called Purple Political Breakdown. I talk a lot about politics over there, extensively talking about policy, typically trying to break things down. Spoke with a couple different types of people, talking about political solutions. That's why I try to focus on progressing the country forward. I don't hide my opinions and my dislikes of people and certain groups that I do think are basically a cult. Um, with that said, I'm focused a lot on this election cycle, and I live in Ohio, so I've been doing a lot regarding Ohio elections and local politics, and try to talk to as many candidates as possible. So, you're interested in that? Go check out my podcast.
Awesome, man. And then Scratch.
I'm Scratch. You can find me at Scratch9258 on TikTok, YouTube, and almost any other social media. I'm a leftist. I do political debates, mostly debating MAGA, sometimes debating liberals, very occasionally. Um, I post pretty consistently on my YouTube now, and I also do live streams on TikTok, and just started to do live streams on YouTube Shorts.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you guys joining. Normally, we will have clips from the news and stuff like that to introduce a topic, but because all of this was set up so last minute, we do not have a compilation of news clips to head into this. So we'll just get right into it. The UK revoked Hassan and Cenk Uygur's ETAs. They were both planning on being there this weekend to speak at, I think, different things. And the UK revoked their ETAs to where they're not able to travel to the UK to do these meetings. Now, they might be doing them mobily over the internet in the meantime, but both Hassan and Cenk have seen this as an attack on their freedom of speech and said that this is because they criticize Israel, that the UK is just doing this to stop people from criticizing Israel within their country. So, if you guys want to start off, Redell, do you want to tell us first what your thoughts on this are?
Um, General thoughts. I always do think it's necessary when diving into what other countries doing to understand that this is coming from an American point of view. I don't live in the UK and I don't pretend to live in the UK. With that said, I know they have different freedom of speech laws and they adhere to that. And from my understanding, that this is not the first time that they revoked an ETA. They did revoke ETAs for people who are right wing, people who are Islamophobic as well. So this is kind of the standard that they hold. Now the question is whether or not this standard should exist for Hassan and Jank. Of course, that's the conversation. But they revoked the ETA. The Jank and Hassan can apply for a visa and provide additional documentation, really advocate for their case if they want. I'm guessing they're not going to. And I'm sure this is going to add a lot to their Israel's against us, add to their publicity, make them a martyr, which I don't think is necessarily good. So the overall consequences of this is questionable, but at the very least, I do think it's important to understand that this is not just like a bias where you just hate Hasan thing. They think this is for the greater good to ensure that it's not disturbing the public good of the UK.
All right, and Prime.
Okay. First of all, two things. I'm peeping that One Piece flag, the Straw Hat flag back there.
Attack on Titan manga right there too, if you locked in.
Okay.
No, that's a Totenkopf. I know that.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
the skull and crossbones. That's a Totenkopf. You were
True.
One Piece, greatest story ever told. So, shout out to you. And shout out to this other person was Scratch. Hey, liberals are the scum of the earth. So, good work on debating them. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree with Rattle just on a little bit, right? Like I think he's correct in saying that, like, well, you know, other people were have this, like, this is a power that the UK government has and employs against others, right? And for across the political spectrum, right? So, and we don't, it may, for some people, it may have been framed that way. That's just like, oh, this is some extraordinary action they've just taken against Cenk Uygur and Hassan Piker. So I think Radel was correct in saying that's not quite the case. However, right, like, when do they use their power? Right, like each time they use this particular power, like, who are they protecting? Who doesn't? Who gets to enter the country? Right, like what type of people? Um, I mean, like, we have criminals wanted by the ICJ, who from Israel, who get to come to the UK. That's fine, right? That doesn't disturb the public order. What the hell does disturbing the public order mean? What would have happened? Would there have been riots? What is the charge? What would they have done to, like, be so dangerous as to not have been let in? Right? I think it's completely BS. And I think that and certain groups brag about their abilities to influence governments, right, and to get them to ban and to punish others who question Israel. So I don't know, like, why we have to pretend otherwise. What's happening here? Like, it's pretty much what it is on its face. But yeah, let be happy to talk about it.
all right, and then Scratch.
Yeah. I think sometimes people in this conversation get, like, I don't think anybody done it here, but too caught up in the, like, legal sense of, oh, it's perfectly legal for the UK to do this, and I don't think anybody's contesting that part. But the part that I have a problem with is that, like, is this actually doing anything good? Like, are we, if the point is to try and, like, keep Hasan Piker from spreading his ideas, are we doing anything to prevent that? Right? Hasan can still stream to the UK, right? It's not like they banned the internet access to go onto Twitch and look at Hasan Piker stream. And now are people going to hear, oh, I'm being persecuted by the UK because of because they revoked my ability to travel there, right? I don't think it's, if anything, if you want to try and shut down Hasan, right? I would let him talk. I wouldn't do that because you're just giving him more of a platform to say, these people are discriminating against me. These people aren't letting me into the public space. I also want to say that, like, I'm not liberal, but I do think, like, some liberal values like free speech are important, and you aren't upholding those when you do this, right? Under the First Amendment, viewpoint discrimination is not allowed, and this is a form of it. We are discriminating against Hassan for his political beliefs, which, I don't think they're. I think some of them are harmful, but I don't think whatever he's going to do in the UK, it's not going to, like, cause riots or anything. And then number two, right? Once again, we're giving him a platform to say he's being persecuted by the UK, the Zionist interests, Zog or whatever. So yeah, I don't think this visa revocation is helping anybody. I think it's probably just it's giving Hassan a platform.
Okay.
To say that, like,
I mean, well, just real quick, I generally, the more, like, formal debates, I don't normally join in, but for this one, especially because we're missing some people, I I will see how active I am, but I'll go ahead and just start off and give like my brief opinion on this. That I do think that like generally the UK does have very different freedom of speech rules and guidelines. We showed some clips of them arresting people for some very vague and innocuous things that they called hate speech, which seemed really weird. But they have very different standards than the United States, and that a lot of people bring up, where Hasan and Jank say this is against their freedom of speech. Generally, that doesn't really apply to ETAs. They're very different from like having a visa, because with a visa, you've already been vetted and approved.
You don't know what ETA is. You don't know what it is. Like, I thought it was a visa.
It literally means that you just sign up for it and then you get it, and that makes it to where you can travel to countries like in the UK, New Zealand has ETAs, Australia has ETAs, but they're only for specific countries. And so, like, Australia will say, as long as you're from the UK, New Zealand, or the United States, you can sign up for an ETA and just come. Okay. That's it. And so, yeah, there's no real vetting process. It just has like
you're only there for
limit.
A short amount of time too.
Yes, as a limit to how long you can be there. Right. So once your ETA is like revoked, you now just have to sign up for a visa, and now your visa can be suspended. And especially for public figures and people who are a bit more controversial, it's not odd or rare for countries to revoke visas over controversial speech. There was a person named Valentina Gomez, who's a far-right anti-Islamic person who was banned from the UK recently. Kanye West was banned when he put out his statements in the past. There's been a bunch of people who have actually had their visas revoked, but that's like a bigger deal because you've already been approved. For an ETA, you haven't really like gone through a vetting process or an approval process. But on top of that, I am kind of in favor of more social stigmas, and where there isn't like a free speech issue with the government, having more pushback from people. And I think that Hasan regularly falls within those lines. So I'm not too upset over him getting in trouble with them.
But the ease of getting an ETA is simply just like showing up, showing your passport, showing an ID, take a picture, approval in a couple minutes. It's that easy. They just don't want to make sure you're like, you are who you are and you're not a harm for the most part. Most Americans get past. Obviously, the difference between Hasan Piker and an average citizen is he has a huge platform, huge influence. All the things he said in his past are on record for many political pundits. So he's not your normal citizen, especially in reference to the UK laws, which they do protect against things like, attacking religions, for example. So it's a little different. He can sign up for the visa and prove that he's not this harm that people think he is, but he can't just go through the normal process, which, I'm not mad at it, as long as they can like provide proper vetting through the visa, and we'll see how they do it. And he got that opportunity, then we'll see how that kind of plays out. But he's not going to do the visa anyway.
But this is this is misleading because like and I don't think you're trying to be misleading or anything like that. I'm just saying that like there is no alternate path here, because like they were supposed to go for events, and then like those events are like passed or are going to be passed, right? Like there's no time to do like go through the visa process, right? And like so when like Jenk was at the airport he found out, right? And so that was just it. But in any case, right? Like this, like whether they have gone through some sort of alternate process. I mean, the point is like a rejection is happening here. Why are we having this rejection? Like, is that a fair use of power? Should this power like be there in the first place? Like, should they be allowed to do this? We can acknowledge that they do have this power. They've given them, but like, should that be the case? Like, and who gets targeted, right? And for like what reasons? So I don't think and I'm not sure if anyone's necessarily actually doing this, but let these authorities off the hook. And like the UK has shown a pattern of this, right? So there's designating the group Palestine Action a terrorist group. Come on, right? Palestine Action was like just doing direct action for like people of Palestine. Now they were, being disruptive certainly, but a terrorist group, right? And now like they arrest anyone who's just saying like, oh, I'm part of Palestine Action. Oh, I guess you must be a terrorist now, right? This is these powers are powers they would love to have here in the United States to actually do that. They don't, but like this, like I mean, it sends a chilling effect, and so I would say like if there were, the other examples are above people I don't like, right? Like Kanye West, disaster of a human being. Fuck that guy, right? But like, if um, if taking away this ability the UK government has allows Kanye West to come in, but also people with like, across the political spectrum, people who aren't necessarily insane, right? Coming so they can't be harassed by the government. I'd gladly take that deal. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
I just want to say, like, I'm not trying to say that, like, oh, it's illegal what the UK government did, right? I'm just trying to say that there's this even like liberal value of free speech, which I'm pretty sure at least everybody here probably somewhat believes, right? In that, right, we don't want to violate that value, and that part of that, at least in America, means that people of Hassan's beliefs, they do have the right to say those. And I don't see any reason why we should like keep him out of that country. And once again, even if you say, oh, well, he does have some harmful beliefs, right? We're just once again, right? Somebody from UK can still log on to Twitch.
We
and
aren't
watch
keeping him out of that country. They're keeping him.
No.
We're
The
not
UK
keeping him
is.
out of that country.
Yeah, I'm saying like this
Yeah,
is like
but
an illegal thing from the UK.
Sure. So when it comes to like the legal idea of freedom of speech, though, is very different. Where you're saying like we have a culture of freedom of speech, sure, but that's not like it's not the same when it comes to going to other countries, when it comes to privileges, when it comes to things that are not really rights. When we're talking about freedom of speech, we're talking about like this being a right for our citizens. So like consider Mahmoud Khalil. This is somebody that the Trump administration tried deporting because he was engaging in Palestine protests, pro-Palestinian protests, and they were trying to kick him out over this. And even if he said like pro-Hamas sentiments or anything like that, the court ultimately rejected them trying to kick him out of the country because he was a permanent resident on a green card here. He had already been vetted, approved, like now he has these rights. The freedom of speech is a right of his regardless of whether or not he's a citizen here. But for somebody who's coming from the outside, who hasn't gone through any of those vetting processes, it is just drastically a different thing. And to consider that if we had somebody like Tommy Robinson who was trying to come to the United States, I would totally be okay if the United States turned around and was like, yeah, I'm sorry, you're just too controversial of a figure. You've said some hateful things. You've said some conspiratorial things. You're not somebody that we want to approve for a visa or to, just be willy-nilly coming in and out of our country.
But that applies that applies to anybody, right? So, right, according to I think Wixon v. Bridges, any alien in the United States is afforded rights of free speech, so it doesn't matter the duration of your stay as long as you're within U.S. jurisdiction, right? I think that makes sense.
It just means that they can't be arrested for free
does that
speech.
apply to
They can't be arrested and deported for what they say. But I just think, right, I'm not even arguing in a legal sense here. I'm more arguing in a value sense, right? It's a value of freedom of speech. We have
right, but that's why I'm trying to separate them. Is that like if you say there's a value of freedom of speech, are you no longer allowed to like ban people from your chat because you don't like what they said because you have a value of freedom of speech?
No, but I think that's different than like the obligation a government has when it comes to like deciding who and who doesn't get this like permission to come into the country.
I do have a question for y'all. Do we understand that when you go to a different country, do you make sure that you understand the potential norms or potential rules before like going to a different country? Wouldn't that be like a normal thing to expect?
Yeah.
So I think the bigger question here is not necessarily freedom of speech because we can't infringe our values onto a different country, really, to be honest, no matter how powerful America becomes.
We do that all the time, though.
I don't care what like individuals do, but I'm talking about in reference to a conversation that we as individuals, as Americans, can affect upon each other. The question that I think is very valuable here is Hasan Piker and Cenk Uygur, mostly Hasan Piker, maybe Cenk Uygur. I'll just leave them both in the same camp. they're utilizing things, whether you agree with it or not. They're utilizing things and statements from these individuals that have shown a level of anti-Semitism and hatred against Israel as with their influence and impact that is something that they think can cause an uprising in like religious hate, uprising in the public good, and understanding that they brought in quotes about what he said about 9/11, what he said about Hamas, what he said about like Israel. Understanding you said that, and then going out and going through an ETA, wouldn't the expectation of I should understand that this is a possibility with a country and their free speech rules, wouldn't that be like a reasonable thing to understand considering your own pattern of behavior?
I think we're arguing whether it's like a possibility or whether like this is like part of the norms of the country. We're arguing that
Noting
this
the
is like a
possibility is valuable, right?
huh? Yeah,
We
Noting the
already
obviously
possibility is
yes, but
valuable,
we're
right?
I guess yeah. If you're the person traveling there, you should probably know whether this can happen or not. But it's more of is this like like morally is this an okay thing to do? Like should we want this to happen to people? I think the answer is no, right? And
Yeah.
I
So
don't like
Hassan, not Hassan.
how can it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So the only reason why I bring that up is because the even though it sucks, trust me, if I go to an airport and I find last minute I have this whole plan, I agree. All that planning out the window. It's done. GG's. It's not gonna. You ain't gonna do that again. You're gonna have to reschedule. But you should have known that was a possibility. You should have planned accordingly. You should have understood the potential ramifications of things you said. So I can only feel so bad for something that he's done himself.
This is a distraction.
That's a little too
I was even
pragmatic.
talking about this. Like, this is like strange. Yeah, you're saying,
Knowing the
oh,
religious
it could have
rules of a
happened to
different
you. Oh,
country
yeah,
and then
sure,
understanding
whatever.
what could
I mean, like
happen in response.
you were booked for a an event, right? You went through like the regular process. They don't not like they told you beforehand. There's not much you could do otherwise, right? To like avoid it, right? Like, hey, if you had known, if it was clear that was going to be the case, and it's also clear that going through the visa process would like have different results. I mean, like for all we know, like if even you go through a visa process, they'd reject you. Like they said, they did have Kanye West. I believe Kanye West actually had a visa, right? And they rejected him any which way. So I don't know, like, what's the point of going down this?
Possible.
Like, oh, you should know, like, whatever. Like, the point is that they use the power. That's the thing that we're talking about here, right? And then beyond that, right? This nonsense about anti-Semitism. Like, no, no, rejected completely. Criticism of Israel constantly being confused with anti-Semitism. I absolutely reject that. I will say that I am less familiar with Hassan's statement, so I won't like die on the hill of Hassan. Right? I'm more familiar with Cenk Uygur's statements, and I'll die on those
That's why he's a little
hill
bit more
there.
questionable, I'd say. He's a little bit more
Okay,
questionable.
yeah. Well, if people want to bring in some like quote unquote anti-Semitic statements of Hassan, I'd be willing to at least entertain that. But like this idea, like let's not pretend that we don't know what's happening here. Like you criticize Israel, you refuse to bend to Zionists, right? And then you get punished. This is the pattern we've seen for the last few years, right? As we've seen the genocide take place, as people have stood up to them, right? Like people are facing all kinds of personal and professional consequences for standing up to Zionists. Let's not pretend this is any different. Let's not pretend this is, oh, because of anti-Semitism. And let's not pretend there was going to be some sort of uprising among the UK public. What? Right? What would have happened? Again, like let's actually like play that out. Or would there have been a riot if they had shown up? There's no reason to believe that. Zero.
I mean,
Oh, okay.
I think
Look,
that the things that Cenk has said is like pretty on the line. Like some of the things that they listed in the Times article, I forget each one, but I think one of them was
Show me
like,
something
he said
anti-Semitic.
that I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be anti-Semitic, but these are like
I mean, that's what he claimed.
conspiratorial
That's
things,
the
like
Red Elder.
that. Oh, okay. Yeah, Redell, if you want to respond to that, then.
oh, okay. Um, I mean, as long as we know, I can't really say anything about like your personal perceptions on like what a different country is doing. I'm not really going to battle whether or not you think what they're doing is wrong. And we can kind of have conversations on whether or not the certain actions are meeting the thresholds that they emit. But undeniably, I'm not really also interested in like the whole this is Well, let me ask a question, verifying question, because I don't want to put something on you if it's not true. Are you saying that the action here is purely because of like Israel influence, or do you think this is more so them upholding their standards of the UK?
Well, those two things are like completely different, right?
I agree.
Like it seems like, yeah, okay. Oh, good. Okay, so then, there is no clear separation. Like there's some power that can be used, a power that can be politically influenced. Like I don't know, and maybe this has been published. Maybe you guys have more information than I do, right? But I don't know who actually made the decision here, right? Like what? Like was it their foreign office, their foreign ministry that
It's
like
the
made
Home
the decision?
Office.
The home
Home
office,
office.
excuse me. Yeah, the home office. They made a decision. What like and who within that home office, right? Like what is the process exactly? What did they find offensive? Like what? Like these things aren't actually presented, so it's like hard for me to actually interrogate all this. But like groups have been targeting these individuals, trying to destroy them personally, professionally, because they won't shut the hell up about Israel's genocide, about their ethnic cleansing, about their constant, ever-present war crimes. And uh, they actually have successes many times, right? And then beyond that, it doesn't even have to be those specific groups, right? There are simply Zionists, right? People who just support the state of Israel, right? People who support or like imperialism, right, in the West, who could afflict these consequences as well, right? Like, so I mean, I don't know, like, how can I tell where one ends and the other begins?
And I think that's fine to say you don't know. And even like none of us really know. But from what they said, and you're by no means going to have me up here saying defending Netanyahu's bullshit and Israel's bullshit, especially in the last couple of years. When it comes down to it, they noted that they did this because of the public good. Now, we can have a conversation on whether or not that's even valid. We'll get there, I'm sure. But they also noted that they have had a very strict intention to go after extremist groups that were attacking like religion and were attacking like certain type of identities. That's why they brought up the example of getting preventing far right agitators from the like Tommy Robinson rally, and they noted that they banned hate preachers, preachers that were hating on Islam in particular from coming into the country as well, and revoking their ETAs as well. So I do think it's a note that if that's the principle, that they do not want these very clear hateful groups into the country, and their rationale regarding Hassan and Cenk is that they showcase this same level of hate from things they've said
But
regarding
this isn't a principle.
Hamas or
We know this,
support with
right?
any terrorist groups, or
Not a
the
principle, though. They
overt
that, yeah.
criticism of
It's
Israel that they think is
the
going too far. Then
one
at
who's
that
actually
point,
done the war
that's their
crime
rationale.
is coming to
Did you say?
um
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What were you saying?
sure, sure. These aren't principles. The head of the IDF has come like visited like with the head of state or there or Keir Starmer there at Israel, right? Like the guy who's doing the genociding, right? Who's executing the genocide came in. So like what are these principles that they're talking about? Like, oh, we have to keep dangerous people outside. How is the people responsible for the genocide actually executing that in various other war crimes and in other theaters of battle, right? Like those people are able to come in and outside the UK. These aren't actually principles, right? They're simply applied to enemies of the state. Right, and Cenk Uygur and Hasan Piker are apparently enemies of the state, was pretty badass. I would take that. But their speech is more dangerous than the actual factual deaths caused by those Israeli officials. But these aren't. Let's not pretend that they're following some sort of like set of rules, right? Well, they just easily apply to people who are coming in, right? That's not a thing here.
Yeah, and like why? Like I know you were talking about like oh like you should know the rules before coming to the country, but does that even really matter? Like if I was a journalist in like in I don't know like a Middle Eastern country like Saudi Arabia, who's like doing journalism and like the oppression of women there, and then because of that, and this date has done this before, they executed me. Would the response be, "Oh well, you should have known the rules, the pregnant rules and the norms of the country before I come in there, knowing that they've killed journalists in the past"? No, it would be, "This is something needs to be condemned. This is something that isn't good, right?" So I don't think we don't need to like appeal to the there's enforcing the norms. When you say this action here is bad, would you ban somebody for coming to the country merely for being a pro-Palestinian advocate, or even if not, just for being what they call, what do they say, like for the good of the country? What was it?
Yeah, for the public
For
good.
public good,
yeah,
yeah.
for the public
Disrupting the
good.
public good, something
Yeah, for
like that.
discovering the public good. That's something that's that's not helping anybody, right? You're not stopping Hasan from saying anything, even if you think it's harmful. You're giving him a platform, and honestly, let him come in. Let him say what he wants to say at Cambridge. Let him say what he wants to say to whatever event he wanted to do. It's not like he's, as you're saying, it's not like he's going to cause a riot or anything.
So my thing is that I do think there is something interesting behind whether or not this is actually defending the public good. Um, but before I get to that, I would say, in terms of Prime, is that I'm
Yes.
calling you Prime? Prime. So, and I really don't want to get bogged down there, but I think it's fine to criticize the government if your moral intuition is that their Braincape principles based off like how you feel about what is going on with Gaza. I think that's perfectly fine. However, do you think that they are being consistent in reference to things that they may consider an upheaval regarding groups like Tommy Robinson and groups that are hating Islam in reference to Hassan and their belief that he is pushing anti Semitism? Do you think there's principle consistency there?
I just said no. Like I just said no.
So why do you think they're doing it for all these groups?
I have no idea. I have no idea, like what goes into each individual decision, right? I just know they aren't actually applying it evenly, right? Like we have people wanted for war crimes who like come in. The UK refuses to execute the warrants against them. The International Criminal Court warrants that they are bound by, right? Like they just refuse to execute those. Anyway, like an actual warrant against some of these Israeli officials, and they refuse to execute them, right? Like so clearly, like they aren't particularly concerned. And then these officials have said plenty of awful things about Islam, right? Like the heads of the Israeli state, right? Not just Netanyahu, but I'm talking about like the ministers and all that, right? There's an endless list of cases of them defaming Islam, defaming Muslims, and then actually, hurting them, actually eliminating these people, right? So why aren't those people rejected at the very least, if not like arrested as they should be? Let's not pretend
So
here. Go ahead.
now, I
There you
don't
go.
really want to get bogged down to like the government officials and political candidate or conversation in reference to what a country should bring in. But I think again, I think it's fine to say like, okay, I don't know, and I don't think you're providing those principles evenly, and you're not sure. That's fine, and I do think we can move on from that point. So when it comes down to the other point, the conversation of
Oh, I mean,
is
before
this
you move
really
on, I do
okay?
think that like there's a good bit more there. I think that Cenk Uygur had a number of statements that they said that they found to be pushing anti-Semitic tropes about Jewish people. Like he denied that, or sorry, he claims that Israel did 9/11 and kind of pushes that conspiracy theory. On Piers Morgan, he said that the him and his son were going to the UK over the weekend, and they were planning on saying some things that are likely going to get them arrested. He denied the grooming gangs allegations in Manchester and Yorkshire, saying that they weren't mostly Muslims. Which were there are already like big protests and somewhat riots and things here and there that are already like escalatory currently with that scenario. right now. And so having somebody coming in who is literally denying it while there's unrest over it, probably not the best.
Okay, so
You can have
so
your
So
I need the
reasons meant
actual
for
quote.
being
I need the actual
anti-Islamophobic.
quote on the what was the first thing you said? Oh, the nine Israel did 9/11. I think I know the conversation that you're talking about. I've seen them discuss that particular issue. The thing that they were discussing were the and again, that's why I'm ready for a quote because maybe you're talking about something else, in case I'll reconsider. But like the dancing Israelis accusation, right? And so for people who don't know what I'm talking about here, 9/11 happens, right? There is a woman who I forget exactly where the situation happens, right? But I think it's like either on an interstate or like on some sort of highway, some sort of a road, right? And she sees these a group of individuals who are like outside of a van like celebrating, right? And like dancing like as like the towers are falling. Like the towers are like in ruin, right? And I'm not sure if she catches them before the second plane hits and celebrating there. So I don't want to make a false statement there. But in any case, right? They're like celebrating, dancing, right? Well, the FBI eventually finds these people, and they were Israelis, and they were working for the IDF. Like they were part of the IDF, and they were like celebrating what happened. And this is like documented. Like the dancing Israeli
One of
incident is
them,
documented.
yeah, one of
Um,
them had associations with Mossad. They didn't work for the IDF, but one of them had associations with Mossad, and that
I
they
don't really
like they
know
do, but they went over that initially, and then people accused them of pushing the Israel did 9/11 conspiracy theory, and when they came back, they never said no, we don't believe that, or we never pushed this or anything. They came back and were like, how can you deny the evidence? There's so much evidence. Like, how can you deny this? And they've done it a couple of times at this point where not a single time have they ever denied that they believe that Israel did 9/11. Each time they just keep backing up this assertion.
one way, hold on, but even that's the case, right? Like, and I don't think it is because I've heard them plenty of times. No, they haven't said that. They may have said like they may have known that 9/11 was going to happen, had like actual intelligence, but no, haven't heard them say it. Again, I'm waiting for you to provide me some quotes, right? Because again, maybe I missed something. If I did, then I'll take back my words. But like they've said that it's possible, very likely, Mossad had some evidence, right? And remember, like before 9/11, right? Bush was warned that there's likely to be attack against the towers, right? So like this was not like this was unknown within the
Yeah,
intelligence
no, I don't
community
deny
that
the
this
information
would
that they're
happen.
stating.
Okay, great.
I don't
So then,
deny the evidence. I'm not denying the evidence that they're stating about the Israelis in the van and all of this stuff. I don't deny that. But they do seem to just totally ignore all of the other evidence about the Taliban and about the Afghanistan
no, they
and all of
don't.
these other things.
No, they don't. You're just making that
Okay,
up. No, they don't.
I'm not. I've
I've watched
reviewed like
plenty of
Tom,
three
are you
different
trying to
videos on this.
apply
I
the
have numerous
I'm still
videos
waiting
on
for a
my
quote.
channel.
I'm still
Okay, I
waiting for a
can't
quote.
just show you a single quote, but I have three
Well, just
fucking videos
take
on
the
my
time to
channel
search for it.
going over this over and over.
Take
I
the time
can't
to
just
search
give
for
you
it.
like a single quote. But
Take your time
even
to search
what's
for it.
yeah, but even if you so let's just I will go and look for it in a second. Let's assume that happened. Do you think that is like that's not like enough conspiratorial enough for them to think, hey, this is like engaging in some anti-Semitic tropes here?
I'll gauge it directly. Of course not. No, actually, right? Like you can make an accusation. You should be able to, any which way. Let's put it that way, right? You should be able to make an accusation about a government, whether it's founded or unfounded, right? And making an accusation against a given pyramid is not a bigoted thing, right? Like you can make a conspiratorial accusation about the American government. Does that mean you're bigoted towards Americans, right? Or the German government?
Wait,
or the
it doesn't.
Japanese
It's not the same thing as
Does that
being
mean you're
bigoted, but
bigoted
you
towards them?
are.
No, it's not.
It,
It's a
It's not the same
what?
thing as being bigoted, but it
Those
is
rules only
engaging in
apply to Israel.
anti-Semitic
Go ahead.
tropes.
No,
Yes,
it's
it is
not.
things that are
How's
engaging in
that?
anti-Semitic tropes.
How is doing 9/11 an anti-Semitic trope? How's like performing a terrorist attack an anti-Semitic trope? How's that a trope?
You
Like
really, so
Jews
really,
doing
you don't know that like
let's say that like
neo
is
Nazis
it's not even
think.
Jews, Israelis performing a terrorist attack. How is that a trope?
I can see. I think what
Yeah.
Tom's trying to say here is that like the dancing Israelis thing is mainly perpetuated by like
No. Fuck
goyimers,
the dancing
Nazis,
Israelis.
fascists.
Yes, exactly. It has been neo-Nazis for the longest time that because Jews run Israel and Israel is the home, it's the Jewish state, that they start applying all of these, very like crazy conspiracy theories to Israel. And then, so it's like, it's just saying like, oh, they're not anti-Semitic. Okay, I don't know like how they feel or but they are engaging in anti-Semitic tropes for sure.
You could just keep saying that. Like, anti-Semitic trope is supposed to be a thought-terminating cliche, right? Like, end it right there. Oh, I said a trope happened, right? Like, well, first of all, what is the trope, right? Like, is that a trope that like Jewish people are terrorists? And even then, and if that was the case, right, does that mean I can't say that a person who happens to be of the Jewish faith has done a terrorist attack because they've done terrorist attacks in the past? It's like,
no,
is
it's
that
it's a conspiracy theory. It's a fucking conspiracy theory,
doesn't
and it's a
matter.
radical conspiracy theory.
Zog is
It
a-
does
Zog
matter.
is
I
a-
think that if people
Well,
are
we
coming
can
in from the
apply
outside
conspiracy theories to
denying.
other countries, and it's not a problem. You can say the UK did something that like might be aligned with some sort of conspiracy theory, and then not get banned apparently. But when it comes to Israel, yes, when you say it's a conspiracy theory, you just apply it as a conspiracy theory, and then the next thing that happens is that someone like Tom here will say, well, because it's a conspiracy theory, right? That means it must be an anti-Semitic trope, right? And then now that you've gone that far, you've done something bigoted, we can ban you. Like, this is an easy road of broken logic. No, I reject it.
Well, not all
That's-
conspiracy theories are. It's not inherently anti-Semitic, but it is an anti-Semitic trope. Those things can be can be two separate
Yes.
things, right?
True.
So like, if
Yes,
somebody
that's
came
what
on my
you're saying.
live, if I was debating somebody coming on my live, and they said, like, what do you think about the dancing Israelis? I would immediately assume they're Nazi. I would not even a glancing thought immediately. The only people who talk about that I've ever heard talk about that or debate me on it are
That's
goyimers.
definitely not the case. That's definitely not the case.
But even on top of that,
maybe
yes,
the only one you
conspiracy theories.
I mean,
but
it's the same.
definitely
It's
not
the
the
same
case.
perception of like stereotyping. We understand certain markers can determine how people may or may not be based off general experience and general intuition of what these things typically provide. Like, we understand those things exist, right?
No, hold on, they do exist, but hold on, dancing Israelis isn't one of them. So, like, I don't know about your experience. So I can't speak to your experience as Scratch,
Okay.
but yeah, I've heard plenty of people talk about the dancing Israelis. Like, they don't have to be neo Nazis. Like, what is this? Like, and even then,
Could they
it doesn't
be
just because
anti-Semitic?
just because no, it's not anti-Semitic. Again, you have to prove that
Okay.
this is anti-Jewish, right? Or to say that like a person who happened to be a Jew, not even caused 9/11, but like happened to know it beforehand because other people knew there was going to be an attack, right? This was known. This was reported to the president of the United States.
What is the context
This is-
of you hearing people talk about dancing Israelis? Like, what would they typically talk about
They're talking
when
about
they bring this up?
We're talking about 9/11, obviously.
Okay.
Right.
And
It
why
just,
would
it's-
they?
it just seems like MAGA logic to an extent, where like Trump can do everything towards a
because
certain
we're talking
group of
about
people
things
over
that
and over and
happened on
over,
9/11,
and then
things
if you
that
say it's racist, then he's like, "Oh, when did he say he hated brown people? When did he say he hated Muslims? He didn't say that." So like he can not want immigration from the southern border for different reasons. He cannot want people coming from the Middle East because they're more likely to be Islamic jihadist terrorists, and it has nothing to do with whether or not he doesn't like Muslims. It's just more about the fact that they could be terrorists. Like, this is the same fucking logic.
If you accused me of doing something that I didn't do, right? Like if you thought that I did
No, that's not what
something-
we're talking about. We're talking about conspiracy theories. We're talking about conspiracy
I
theories.
know. I'm working within your logic here. Okay, Tom. Right? If you said Prime did a thing that Prime factually didn't do, right? This comes out later, right? That I factually prove I didn't do it, right? Hey, Tom, does that prove you're engaging in racist tropes?
No, not necessarily. No.
Oh, well, it wouldn't. Okay. So, you can
Depends on the context
say
of
that
what
a
you were doing
person.
before.
Mhm.
And it's
Okay.
like
No,
when I
it
hear
depends
like-
I hear people.
like
So
if-
was it that like
pro-Palestinian-
they talked about like
I'll-
sorry, you go first.
Sorry, I hear people who are pro-Palestinian do this all the time. Will they say like, "Oh, America has like a Zionist government, right? Zionist occupied." They say there's like Zionist influences within America, which isn't untrue, but the principle or the concept of Zog itself is an anti-Semitic trope. It's literally it came from Nazis, created by them to describe like Jews controlling the American government. So when the same thing kind of applies where the person say, I don't think Cenk Uygur is anti-Semitic, right? But I would agree with them in the sense that that is definitely an anti-Semitic trope. Where if I hear somebody say Zog, or I don't know anything else about them, when I hear somebody say like, talk about the dancing Israelis, I'm gonna assume that person is probably anti-Semitic.
Okay, well, that'd be wrong. I don't know about this Zog thing. This is the first time I've ever heard that. That's a new term for me. So I'll say nothing about that. One, I've never heard them say that. But I'll withhold judgment on that particular term. But dancing Israelis, other have. So I think that's a bad metric you have. But it's a metric you're allowed to have, if you'd like.
That was one of the other things on the list, is that they believe that they've said that we have a Zionist run government, or whatever it is, that the Israel owns our government, that they run our government, that was one of the other tropes that was on the list.
Yeah, they said
Yeah.
they claim that Jenks said Israel controls America and talks about, Jews use human shields. They talk about a bunch of these things on
They do use human
why
shields.
Jenk is
Well,
anti-Semitic.
not Jews.
So,
Israel,
Yeah.
the IDF uses human shields.
Yes,
And
correct.
then the IDF says that Hamas uses human shield. IDF in Israel in general says all its Muslim neighbors, right, when they're going to war with them, in some offensive war crime, they say that, like, oh yeah, the other side is using human shields, and then we have evidence of Israelis doing exactly that. So, like,
But you
again,
understand,
is
military
that a
personnel
trope?
and governmental officials are different from like the average citizen and influencers. They're different, right?
Yeah, so government personnel should have more responsibility, not less, right?
But in the situation we're talking about applying for an ETA. Governmental officials and military personnel are not going to
So there
UK
should be a lower standard for
No, they should
private
go
citizens.
through a higher standard, and whether or not you
How-
agree with the higher standard in terms of their
Citizens should have a
relationship
higher standard than a
is
government official that can actually do damage.
no. I
It
said
should have a
the government
lower.
officials should have a higher standard. Whether you agree with the
Okay, I
relationship with Israel
misunderstood that.
is different. But in reference to the conversation and what we're talking about individuals and influencers and personalities. Like these are two distinct different things. It's a worthwhile argument for sure in terms of like diving into whether they should be working with these governmental officials or military personnel anyway. But it's not the same thing as like talking about individuals applying for an ETA. These are different.
Well, we can agree there. There should be a higher standard. Once again, right? Those Israeli officials should have been arrested on the spot. Yeah.
Real quick, before
like,
we, I want to make sure we go right back to this, but I want to let Joe go ahead and state where he's at with the Hasan Cenk ETA revocation.
I agree with everybody that says it's a hyped up. They want to go through a further process to do an actual passport. It's not going to be expedited. I don't think it's.
Are you able to
super
turn yourself
serious.
up?
Now, if
I've got you
oh,
at
yeah,
200%, and you're
I
still
don't know why I'm
low.
so quiet. I'll fix it. I'll fix it after I answer.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. If Hasan Piker and Cenk, if they applied for a full visa or a full passport and still got denied, then I would say it's a huge problem. But until then, if they don't even try, then why would I care?
Okay, sorry, Prime, you can go back
Depending
to
on the
what you were
evidence they
saying.
find, I would agree.
I think it's silly when, like, you deny people, like, especially in a time sensitive situation. It's like, what, they didn't go through the visa process? Like, well, they didn't know they had to. Like, it'd be one thing if they had said immediately, right, give them some sort of notice, and said, hey, like, you need to go through a visa process, rather than need to. But there's, like, if you're on a list, you don't know you're on a list, like, what, like, how can you protect yourself in that particular situation, right? Like, I'm curious if there's a way to just call the home office, hey, like, am I banned from the United Kingdom?
Sorry, that's not what he was saying. He was saying
Sorry.
that, like, just the ETA is like a much like more normal thing to be revoked, and that, like, if they apply for a visa and then that was taken away, that he's saying
Yeah,
that would actually be
I
a
heard
big
what he
deal,
said.
and ETA is not like as much of a big deal.
I heard
Well, you're
what
saying
he
it as
said.
though they should have known that this was going to happen ahead of time, whereas
Yeah, but, like, how, like, if this is a time sensitive thing, right? Time sensitive, like, there's
sure.
these events, and you got to be in time for the events, right? Like, And then, and how long
Well,
it takes
the
for
UK
a visa?
apparently says their recommendation is people apply a couple days before just in case you get refused.
Fair enough. But like again, but like it doesn't matter because the UK can still like I don't know like we're treating these as like well, I don't know if it's just like usual that they deny people each days if you're from a one of the approved countries, right? I don't know how normal that is, and I have no idea. Maybe it is. Maybe something just happens like daily, and people just get denied, right? Maybe someone can educate me on that. But like it seems like, and again, I could be incorrect, and someone can correct me, right? It seems like these are specific actions taken against specific individuals, right? And so like it doesn't really matter that they went through the ETA process, the visa process. The point is like there's like if you go through the visa process, but they still think like if the charge is that you'll damage the public good, what difference would it make which process you used, right? If you use the visa process, you'd still be damaging the public goods, the public good if you entered in the country. So it wouldn't make a difference any which way. But like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have a misunderstanding. And someone can educate me on that.
And this kind of reroutes back to Scratch. My boy, you said something earlier that I do think is important to address. You were talking about how there may be like other countries. I think you brought up like a Middle Eastern country where we would still criticize them based off our own values. And I think
Yep.
that is warranted. But the only purpose that I brought up to kind of establish the conversation is understanding what their values are in reference to their decision. And I think sometimes people will try to apply their own personal beliefs and systems onto other countries, insinuating that there's kind of like a nefarious purpose behind it. And it's not so. Now, in regards to the conversation at hand regarding like, is this really a good litmus test for expanding the public good? Now, I think that is actually a very worthwhile conversation to have in terms of will this incite it? I heard someone recently while I was like, I was busy dog sitting and I was watching Wick's panel like right before this, and one of the guys from the UK were talking about how the media is actually becoming very sympathetic to Hasan. And a lot of people are talking about, they probably shouldn't do this or they're neutral about it. So, in a situation from the consequences of this action, if you're going to make a hard stance on not bringing him in and then be sympathetic to him, then in all intents of purpose, you're just rising his stock. What you're trying to do is having an opposite effect. So overall, from that like little bit of evidence that I know, I do think this backfired completely.
Yeah, yeah.
But
In
but
moral
I,
sense,
I won't.
I don't think it's a good thing, right? And even I would agree. Maybe Cenk has said some anti-Semitic tropes, but if they're making a whole statement on this and they're able to investigate all of his beliefs, I think they should probably be able to tell that. I think for the most part he is an anti-Semitic, but like when it comes to the moral stance, yeah, this is just going to be complete backfire, right? You're giving him sympathy. He's able to say they're just trying to censor me. It's not actually helping towards any kind of goal of not like letting him spread his beliefs to the people in the UK.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the conversation about the actual claims that they made for their reasoning for what it was that Jenk said that he was getting banned for. Like the tropes that they're talking about, it's not necessarily that he is an anti-Semite or that they think he hates Jews or is going to try to genocide them or anything. But it's more so that yes, the type of conversations or the types of statements that he makes, they consider those to be anti-Semitic, and that based on again the types of issues that they're having right now with far right groups and Tommy Robinson, they have some odd beliefs in far right beliefs that are causing a lot of unrest over there, and they're becoming more sensitive to it. But even on top of that, I mean, the first thing that I brought up was that he had said that him and Hasan on Piers Morgan, he said, me and Hasan are getting ready to go to the UK and we're planning on saying some things that are likely going to get us arrested. Like that, I feel like that for the UK government would probably be enough for them to be like, okay, like they're literally planning on breaking the law. We're probably going to revoke this ETA.
Not a very smart statement to make. I'll definitely give you that one. But like on the just for a moment, going back to something that Scratch, we can move past it after this. But he can respond if he wants to. But Scratch, when you talked about like again, because I hadn't heard this term, this Zionist occupied government, I believe that's what you said,
Dog.
Zog. Like, yeah, right. Like the way you presented this is like, well, it's a neo-Nazi or something. When they say this, but then what you preface that statement with was like, oh, I see this among pro-Palestinian groups all the time. You make these statements like Zog, right? But when I hear that, I always know it's a neo-Nazi. But you just said we were pro-Palestinian individuals who were saying that. Unless you believe that pro-Palestinian equals neo-Nazi,
Well,
right?
it's
Your statement is
if
contradictory.
if somebody's a pro-Palestinian and the first thing I hear about them is just they're just talking about Zog and they're saying that word, then I'm probably gonna think they're like some kind of groyper, some kind of Nazi. But if I know they're pro-Palestinian and then I hear them say Zog, then I'm thinking, oh, they're just like confused and they're using language that has been basically normalized from this word. So that's why when I say I hear pro-Palestinian groups, I already know. I've already talked to them usually in the past. I already like know that they're
And this is
pro-Palestinian
something that
before I
FD
hear anything.
Signifier has been talking about a lot over the last week, is that a lot of people on the left are appropriating far right talking points and using these, and now they sound like neo-Nazis sometimes, and that they should like be better with their rhetoric.
I would agree with that. I would agree that
Was he
that's
talking
a
about Zog?
dangerous possibility. Sorry, go ahead.
Zog was one of the things that he brought up.
Wasn't that?
Yeah.
That was Zog Slave, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Right?
apparently he was. There's something else. The dude, because I watched this debate, I was like, why is everybody talking about it? Apparently,
Bad
Empanada called this
Empanada.
other dude a Zog slave. It was like,
That was
like, FD
Zog
was
slave,
like, bro,
yeah.
what are you doing?
I guess my problem is like, so I would agree that like, and I've talked about this before many times. Or like I've argued against people because I thought they were using anti-Semitic tropes, the ones that are like more direct and obvious than hey, apparently that you've done a terrorist attack. Okay, but like ones about like like them running like the banks or something, right? But like the thing that like I reject altogether, right, is not actually being able to like address like problems within like specifically my focus is the Israeli administration, right? Or just Israeli citizens or Jewish people in general, right? Like that you can't address a topic that might happen to coincide with a trope, right? And I'm hoping we can get some consensus.
It's
on
not that
this,
you
right?
can't
That, like,
address it, but it
no,
is
hold on,
about how you address
let me
it.
finish it. Let me finish it.
Okay.
Right? I'm not. This is not a statement about Cenk, right? So let's put Cenk and them aside, right? Like I'm just making a more general conversation here. That like whatever it is, like hey, if a black guy actually steals a car stereo, right? We should be able to say that black guy stole a car stereo, right? There shouldn't be anything racist about that. If there is Zionist influences in our government, and the Zionists can be both Jewish and Christian or whatever religion, right? It's Zionist in itself, right? Like that they're Christian Zionists. It's just people who support the state of Israel, right? Like if there are Zionists within our government influence and control, which I'm curious if anyone here will deny that, right? We should be able to discuss that without being without the conversation being shut down as like an anti-Semitic trope, so we can't talk about it. Can we agree on that?
I don't think
please?
I agree, and
nobody's
that's
saying
what
you
I was.
can't talk
That's what
about
I'm
it. It
saying,
is
right?
about,
I agree
well, hold
with
on.
that as well.
It's about how you
Yeah.
talk about it. That's what matters. And so when we're talking about like 1350, if so a black person commits a crime and a bunch of people are all of a sudden like, 1350, like, okay, well, 1350, it's a real thing. It's a real stat. Like, it's not something that we're not allowed to talk about, black people committing crimes at a higher rate. But it is like the way that you do it, the way that you talk about it, the way that you present that, that is going to make a big difference. And when and I think
Also
that
agree.
is the part that people are talking about, is when it gets into those trope territories where you're now engaging in the type of rhetoric that racist people would engage in. That is a red flag for most people.
My
Did
pop
Cenk ever
and
talk
I hear
about
you.
it in an anti-Semitic way? Did he ever bring up Jews? Right? And once again, like they obviously did his research on the guy. I'm pretty sure, like from everything I watch of Cenk, he doesn't say things that are like super anti-Semitic ever. right? So I'd agree.
Apparently, I
Yeah,
also
we
want
Anna
to add
Kasparian
this
does,
as
but-
well.
right. So we can
Apparently,
talk
so
about these.
from
I
what
agree.
it's saying,
Hold on,
Oh,
hold
go
on,
ahead.
hold on. Wait. Let Scratch finish, and then.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I'd agree. It's an anti-Semitic trope, but overall, I don't think he was being anti-Semitic when he said it. And from everything I've seen, he's not an anti-Semitic person, and they should be able to understand that. So I don't think it's like a good reason to, um, revoke this ETA.
another interesting thing to point out there from what this article is saying, one of like the main articles about this, is that they also included when Cenk was talking about like grooming gangs and talking about, like the victims of that. That also apparently was included in terms of why
I mentioned that
you
earlier.
would
Yeah.
disrupt the public good. So not all of it is Israel. Probably most of it, you could say, it's probably Israel, but not all of it. They included like other like very
Yeah.
inflaming type of statements apparently.
I have a
grooming gangs
question. Can you hear
Tom
me?
mentioned that
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
previously.
Is my audio okay now, Tom?
You're
Yep.
still quiet.
You're still
I
quiet.
don't know.
Yeah, but we
Yeah,
can
I don't
we
know
can hear
how-
you. But yeah, we just still quiet.
Yeah, we can hear
Okay.
you. It's
Yeah, someone said that I sound good on my stream and that I sound bad on your stream, so I don't know why. But my question would be, so I saw reactions from like Kyle Kalinske, for example, who said things like, "It's crazy." After hearing this news about like Cenk and Hasan being, getting this I guess you could say ban. And he said, "It's crazy how this tiny little country has such influence over the UK." And my question is it anti-Semitic to just say that? I think it's dumb to say that because the same government. Is it the same people that banned Hasan that banned Israeli ministers, that banned Israel from their big defense expos, that banned Ben Gvir, and issued these travel bans? Are the same people who are banning, Hasan Piker for Israel, also banning Israeli officials
We just
for
had
Israel?
Israeli officials in the UK.
There's some Israeli officials that are banned. I'm not saying every single one is banned, but are they banning Israel officials as well, just to say like, oh, we're being even? Is that like a conspiracy that they're being controlled by Israel in that way as well? Because it seems very interesting to say like they're being controlled by this tiny country when they have banned Israelis as well.
Let's take a look. Ah, shit. I was gonna
Yeah,
say.
there was a
I gonna
defense
say something in
expo.
response to something else.
I believe Smotrich and Ben Gvir had bans as well. But yeah,
The
I think
termination
someone
of
mentioned,
anti-Semitism
Robinson
is
as
based off
well.
like what you think his intent is and who do you think he's trying to appeal to. And knowing Kyle Kalinske, I think he's trying to appeal to the people who hate Israel, and he also hates Israel. So to say that term is anti-Semitic, I do think there's probably a lot of validity in reference to context, not the isolated statement.
this is just from the just from a quick like Google search. It says the UK has officially banned 2 prominent far-right Israeli ministers from entering the country: National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. And then they also said that the UK Ministry of Defense banned officials from the Israeli government delegation from attending the DSEI UK Defense Exhibition in London, and then the UK paused Israeli personnel from participating in UK-run military course, including refusing Israeli students entry to the Royal College of Defense Studies.
I mean, the reason why I try to move on from like the officials argument, not necessarily because it's not important, because obviously there's a lot of validity for that argument in itself. It's just not relevant to what's going on with Hasan and Cenk.
Well, no, it's not.
Like,
It is
completely
because the
different
argument. No, they're not. The reason that it's important is because the argument a lot of this that's being made around this is that the UK is heavily in favor of Israel, that this is another more evidence that they're being run by Israel. Both Cenk and Hasan have both said that they're being run by Israel and that they're just bowing down to their masters and saying that, doing whatever it is that they tell them to do, that they're using this as another piece of evidence to say that this is what's going on. And as I pointed out, they've also banned people for Muslim Islamophobic statements, and they're not just banning far right people who are critical of Israel, but far left people who are critical of Israel, but far right people who are critical of Muslims and Islam and things of that nature. So it isn't just this like one-sided thing. It is that they have just very different standards, and they're a lot more sensitive.
If you broaden the conversation, sure, and I understand why you would utilize this type of evidence, but inherently, in terms of the determination of what's going on here, it's mostly about like speech and whether or not you can impact and influence the audience. And also, very important to note is that we don't know inherently if they do apply for a visa, a much more stringent process, whether or not they would also get banned, and what their claims would be afterwards after going through an extensive search of who they are inherently. So, I just like I think I'm thinking a little bit more too detailed for it. I think in general, like if you really get down to the nitty gritty, these things are irrelevant. But if you broaden the conversation and just like do things for or against Israel, then I guess so.
But that proves
I
the
mean-
UK's point. If you're gonna have someone like Hasan, upon being banned, say you are controlled by your masters, Israel, when the government has taken stances against Israel as well, it proves the point of that Hasan is stroking those divisions, even when it's not justified. Even when has he talked about, you know, the UK banning Israeli officials? Has he given credit to them? Probably not. And the UK is a place that they're always one tweet away from a friggin' race riot. And that's one reason why they're doing this crackdown on freedom of speech,
really
which is like I don't love it. I don't like it. You know, America has protections, and that's what we give credit for the First Amendment for. But like they have a real issue there. Tommy Robinson and all those people are trying to capitalize on every little division they can, and they don't want Hasan coming in and talking about how Hamas is actually better than he'd vote for Hamas over Israel over and over again. As they're trying to make sure their population doesn't go and lynch every single Muslim in town.
Going
I
back
don't.
to so
Alright.
you go first, Scratch. No, you go first.
Yeah, I don't like if we're saying we're like mad about or saying that like this is like a reason because it's gonna sow more division. I can tell you right now that like Hassad is like this is sowing even more division, right? The only reason Hassad's saying that you're controlled by your Zionist masters or whatever is because the UK banned him, right? He wouldn't say that.
He was
That's
saying that
true.
before getting banned too,
Yeah,
though,
I
and that's
think he was
why
saying
they
that
banned
before.
him. That's
Oh,
why they
but
banned
this is
him.
gonna
He
this
was
is
gonna
probably
say
this
that
is gonna boost it.
regardless.
This is gonna boost him anyways.
Yeah, I don't agree with them necessarily, but do you see their point? Like, it seems interesting. Why do you think Hasan says that they are controlled by Israel, although they have banned Israeli ministers as well? Like, why would Hasan still say they're controlled by Israel if they're banning Israeli officials as well?
Well, hold on, because of actual materials,
Before or after the ban?
like even before the ban, right? Like the actual material support for their war crimes, that would be the thing that would be most relevant, right? Like of forming like having military contracts by supplying them with intelligence and not like that would be like the thing that the focus would have been on, like regardless of being banned or not, right? So like that's the thing that has like the most like impact, like the material impact would be that stuff, right? Okay.
I'm just saying, like, why are we saying Israel controls the UK? Why is
Well, are you
Hasan still saying
surprised
that
though?
today?
Like I don't know what you expected from Hasan Piker, to be honest.
I know, but you're kind of just admitting the point that if they're banning people based on anti-Semitism, that seems to fit any definition of anti-Semitism at that point. If you're going to just say Israel controls them with no justification, no rules, because if you wanted to say
the
Israel,
justification would be what I just said, though, right? That would
if
be.
you wanted to say, but that'd be a tiny influence in general. I'm talking about, he's saying they are controlling your puppet masters. The language of puppet masters, that Jews control everything, is the core of anti-Semitism. Because although one group can do a proportionate amount of wealth, or they could have wealth, or they could do the majority of crime, we're not going to say the entire, one race over the other is doing all violent crime, like right-wingers do in America about immigrants. You would definitely say that's racist and xenophobic. You can't just say that Jews or Israel's controlling every part of the UK government.
He did. Hold on, sorry. I'm
He
not.
didn't say
familiar
there's an
with,
influence of Israel. He said they're controlling the government.
I'm not
Are
sure.
you saying
So,
the UK
again,
is supporting his argument? I'm confused. Like what the point here is.
I'm saying that he's proving by continuing to say that the Israeli puppet masters are controlling the entire state of the UK. He's continuing to reinforce the point that this guy's going to spread these conspiracies. Is he not just
So
admitting?
you're saying
Is that not
UK should
anti-Semitic for
not
Hasan?
have banned him?
Is it okay in general? Is it anti-Semitic for Hasan to say that?
no, sorry. Hold on. Let's establish.
I
Did
think
he
so.
say that again? I don't. I
Yeah,
haven't.
he said they were controlled. I watched the entire video after Hasan got banned. He said Israel control the tiny little country. Israel controls all of the UK, and they are following orders.
Okay, I guess I. All right. Well, if that's what you say, then I'll leave it alone then.
Yeah, I think so.
But
Yeah,
is
I'm
that
just like
anti-Semitic? If Hasan did
unsure
say that,
what
is
you're
that
trying
anti-Semitic
to.
though? Is that anti-Semitic?
Yeah.
I reject this. I reject this. No, sorry. It can be follow. That's what we were talking about before. Okay, something can follow a trope, but then also be true and something legitimate to talk about. Now,
Yeah, they
I
would
don't
say that
actually
about
think
black
that
people
the
too. If you say
United
black
States, the
people are
United
violent,
Kingdom
if you say these
is
blacks are
is
violent, they
entirely
would say the
controlled
exact
by
same thing.
Israel.
They would say the exact same thing though, like about black people or about immigrants. Like immigrants are violent. They would say it's generally true. Like JD Vance saying it's directionally true. Like that's what JD Vance said, and he admitted
Yeah,
that he
yeah,
was
hold on,
lying in
hold on.
that
But we can,
conversation.
we can talk, but we can talk about this is the thing I said before. We can talk about minority crime. We can do that, right? So, like I said, like I'm not gonna back the statement that Israel controls all of the UK government. I would say that the UK, United States, and Israel are aligned in their foreign policy goals, especially like in terms of the Middle East, right? These are imperialist nations. They have imperialist goals. Israel is useful to that, and so they assist, right? And they do things to protect each other and sometimes hinder each other, right? As the political winds shift. And within that process, you like in terms of like what we're talking about here, it could be the case that, and again, I don't know, like I said previously, like I can't because I have no insight into this the banning process. I can't say definitely one way or the other. However, right, it could be the case that within this process, like either Israeli officials or people of who have Zionist leanings put undue influence in making this decision. Right, that could be the case. I'd have a far more nuanced thing than saying simply that Israel controls the kingdom. But like even if you said that, right, like is that necessarily like anti-Semitic? Again, well, and this and the thing here, and here's the thing that I hate, right? Is because once again we're talking about he's talking about he is talking about a government, right? He's saying the government in Israel, right? He's criticizing a government, and then now that becomes anti-Semitic. It's not saying Jews control the United Kingdom. That I'd have no argument there, right? That'd be 100% anti-Semitic. The government, and now if you criticize that government, that becomes anti-Semitic, and that I reject all the time. I'll never stop criticizing the Israeli government for its awful war crimes.
So, do you think people use Israel as a placement term to talk about Jews in general?
100%.
They can, but that doesn't mean that we should automatically apply the anti-Semitic term just because someone used Israel, right? Because then that means Israel gets off the hook. That means you can't ever criticize Israel or becomes anti-Semitic. Some will say it's anti-Semitic.
Is there any other country in the world that is often used by any actor, whether on the left or the right, to say this country is controlling larger, more powerful countries? Is there one other? And I know some right wingers who are Islamophobes. They'll use Qatar and say like, people are paid by Qatari influences. So
The
that's
United States.
Islamophobes using
The United
Qatar
States.
to talk about
The
Muslim
United
influence over
States.
America.
No, the United
But
States. That's your answer. The United States. The United States actively controls other countries.
no, I
Like
said smaller country
through
that controls a
vassal.
larger country. So like Israel, it makes no sense that
A smaller.
Israel would control America or Israel would
Why does it have
control
to be a
England
smaller
or
country? What
the
difference does that
UK.
make if the smaller
Because it
country?
doesn't make logical sense.
Because it's ridiculous. Yes, it's ridiculous to think
ridiculous.
that these tiny little countries are controlling the United States or Russia
Prime,
or
you
China.
don't
Like
agree
that's
that
it's
UK
that
is
much more
controlling
ridiculous.
Israel?
That's a dumb fuck
I
thing
mean,
to
Israel's
say.
controlling
That's a
UK.
dumb fuck thing to say, Tom. A stupid thing to say, right? It's about influence. It's about money. It's about
I think we're getting a little into semantics here.
no,
To
excuse
be
me.
honest.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna address this, right? It's about like how policies align, right? That's what happens. So it doesn't matter the size. Oh my God, it's too tiny, right? And so how could you think this thing could have such an influence? Whatever, right? Like, are your do you have policymakers, right, who are sympathetic to that country? Do they get free trips, right? All expenses paid, free trips to that nation. Do they get showered with gifts, right? Are they under a constant influence campaigns? Is the does that government of the tiny country, right? Does it apply um, pressure, right? Either directly or indirectly. Like the UK government, the United Kingdom was like the center of the British Empire, right? And then it controlled like much of the world, but it was a tiny country, guys. And if you say a tiny country, the UK controlled.
No,
like
that's what we mean.
India,
We
well,
mean
that
like
would be
how
a
rich
fucking
they
joke.
are. No. That's what we mean. That's what we mean. We're talking about how powerful they are. We're talking about how like big their military is. We're talking about how rich they are. That's what we're talking. When we say a big country, we're talking about
more
that.
Question on this. I have one more question. Okay, I have one more question for you. Okay, so which country do you
It's
think
literally
has a more...
the same thing. You're just upset about the same thing,
You're
bro.
saying there's an exception because of the size of the country. I'm saying that's nonsense. I'm saying
No, I'm not. I'm not. I literally just said that's not what we're saying.
Guess what you did? I said, hey, the United States.
I have a good question. I have one question.
It has to be a smaller country, applying it to a bigger, controlling a bigger country, and that will be
okay. Just keep repeating yourself, bro. Just keep repeating yourself.
Question.
That's much better. You're really getting far with
one question, then I'll move on from this. Okay, which country do you think has a more vast, powerful propaganda network to influence American politics? China or Israel? What would you say?
Israel, absolutely.
See, like that is deranged. That is insane. Like that is mentally deranged. To say China is less powerful than Israel for propaganda in America
has an active intelligence apparatus aimed at
China has spies getting arrested right now.
Yeah,
all across America.
Sorry, are you not aware?
Who do you think has more influence over U.S. academics and U.S. social media algorithms and U.S. Dude, yes? It's crazy to say. To say China is less influential than Israel and America is crazy.
I'm sorry, is this literally new to you? That
which is crazy.
We were there. So maybe you weren't old enough to remember this, but I was, right? At the beginning of the genocide, when this was happening, we had protests on college campuses. What happened to those college campuses protests? You may not remember this, but like those were cracked down by the colleges. The colleges administrations came down and because they were controlled by people who were sympathetic to Israel, right? Like this is not a secret, right? Literally billionaires, New York, that was like, especially that one New York billionaire, I can find his name if you like, right? Was like interfering. I believe this was either Princeton or NYU. Both of them didn't cover themselves with glory, right? Specifically influence these people and said there will be consequences, right? They said, hey, you'll be like for those students, hey, you'll be fired. You'll be fired or not hired at all if we catch you as part of these protests. Yes, Israel has a massive influence campaign here, right? We have Netanyahu on tape. Hopefully you've seen this, but maybe you're not old enough to remember this, right? Talking about how like the most important acquisition is TikTok, right? For an influence campaign, right? So we can influence the youth. TikTok. Right? And then they succeeded at that. And then the next thing he said after that in that same clip, Twitter, right? Like what are you talking about? Of course Israel has more influence than China. Like where's that? Okay, so I'll just leave it there.
I don't think this is like a claim that can be truly verified. I do think it's hard to prove meaningful influence. I do think Israel does have a lot of influence. One, because we have a relationship. They're our ally, of course. And then there's a lot of powerful people who are very pro-Israel in general, whether it's religious or, monetary reasons. I also think there's a lot of influence from China that also just cannot be verified because we're not allies with them. So their only attempt to fuck with us is through like hackers and bots and sowing discord and pushing misinformation to really ruin political discourse. There's a lot of that in America.
Well, China funds pro-Palestinian content as well.
I think these are just like not...
China help pro-Palestinian content be shared more on social media as well. So China, their strategy is more internal domestic social division. And they help the protest conflict and everything. Like that's why like Tucker, who's on team Russia, Qatar, and China and Iran, is pushing like this. Although he's hated Muslims his entire life and called them animals. Now he's like this big, savior of Islam. And he's super, anti-Israel every, 24/7. It's just because the angle that China ended up taking in America to cause more division has been the other side of the issue. And that's why Israel, in my opinion, is getting such a beatdown with PR in America because people or countries like China and Russia are putting their finger on the scale as well. And we can't, China's much smarter than Israel is. Israel's stupid as hell.
War crimes
but China's much smarter.
Right? also the war crimes that Israel's been committing and the world's been watching for years, right? That would also be a reason
I thought
why
the Jews control the
Israel.
media and control every country in the world. How how
I
are we
did.
saying that?
Well, that's pretty anti-Semitic of you
That's what
because no one
Hassan
here said
says.
that,
I'm
right?
just saying
Well,
what
I don't
Hassan
know.
says.
Well, I'm not talking about Hassan. I'm saying, right? Israel, like you're saying that. Well, the reason why Israel's gotten beaten up is because bad PR. Well, it would also be because
You said it yourself that
of like
Israel's more
the war
powerful with their
crimes.
propaganda than any other country globally.
I said no. No. Whoa, what? Nope. That's not
Name
what I
one
said.
country that has better
No,
propaganda
that's
than
just what I
Israel.
said. You asked me who has more influence within the United
Do you
States.
think
I said the United
Israel
States,
has
not
the most
globally.
influence of any foreign lobby of any country in the entire globe?
And no.
Okay,
I
name
said,
one country more influential than
sorry,
Israel.
hold on, no, sorry, hold on, stop, because stop trying to move the goalpost. You said previously, hey, who has more influence within the United States? That's the thing I answered, not globally. I had no idea in terms of global influence. I guess that would be the United States altogether. But the United States being the global hegemon would have the most influence globally. But that's not the question I answered before. So please don't try to move the goalpost. Thank you.
Yeah, do we have any evidence that when Hassan says Israel or Zionists that he means Jews?
Do you have any evidence that when Tucker Carlson talks about these thugs in the streets that he means black people?
Yeah, probably.
Well, that'd be the question: is
When he
you would do dog
shows
whistles
black
if you
people, when
did
he
want
shows
to do that?
footage of black people, I guess that would mean he'd be talking about black people, right?
The
Like
argument
in
would
the
say that
streets
you
or
have a
Do
bias. That'd be the argument, right? It'd be bias. If you hear a white person say something racist, for example, and they don't realize it's racist, that you might just be able to tell they're a racist person by how they phrase it. It'd be that same thing, but with Hassan, where it's like if you think Israel is the root of everything, even if a country has contradictory influences where they're banning Israelis as well, then it might be a little bit weird that you're saying they are they're the puppet masters controlling everything. How would they ban themselves?
Oh yeah, during the because of the Dominion voting machine lawsuits, a bunch of texts were leaked, and he said not how white men fight, according to New York Times, when talking about a fight. Let's see.
no one here is denying that bias or stereotypes exist and that people can engage with them, right? And maybe people might be confused as to if that's my position. That is not my position. I thought I made that clear, but maybe I didn't. Absolutely, you can, right? What our friend Tom was saying before about like 1350 necessarily, right? Like, hey, you could talk about a minority crime. I think he was saying, but like, hey, maybe if you do it in the context of like 1350, you present it in that way. Maybe that implies some bias, right? Or that is playing on a stereotype. Fair enough, right? Agreed. My problem is that while I agree with that, I think the anti-Semitic trope is over applied. Right. I think I think that like even people on the left who I would generally agree with, right, engage in that. And I forget who was saying that. Was you, Tom, that FD signifier was talking about this? Or sorry, yeah, that the FD signifier was talking about this. Yes, I think people on the left have been engaging in anti-Semitic tropes, whether intentionally or unintentionally, right? Because I think maybe they've through osmosis have taken in some of those right wing talking points. I think that's absolutely the case, right? But like that counter, right? I think that counter has been made impotent, right? Because for these past few years, anyone who's criticized Israel on any grounds, right, has been hit with the anti-Semitic label. It happens all the time, right? And so, like, literally, yeah, you don't. None of you watch my channel, so you don't know, right? But like, I had very big battles about people. It was actually on Kanye West, right? Because Kanye West was saying things I thought was like super anti-Semitic, and I was like battling with my friends who was a big Kanye West fan, and was supporting the things he was saying. I was like, this is bullshit, completely anti-Semitic.
I would
What he's
bet
saying.
I would bet anything. What is it? Was he bald?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't Mr. Fanatic. It wasn't Mr. Fanatic. It was
Okay.
someone
All right.
else
All right. All right.
who
Okay.
has a lot of similar takes. But But like this was like a big fucking fight, right? So but anyway, so I agree that a person can't be anti-Semitic, right? But at this point, like that like distinguishing that in an effective manner has been destroyed because now that has been applied to anyone, including people specifically criticizing a government.
I
Do you
think
think if you
nobody's going to
applied for
deny
an
that like Israel
ETA, you would get
has a lot
accepted?
of what?
I asked Prime, do you think if you applied for ETA, you would get accepted or denied? What do you think?
I think I'd be
I'm
accepted
curious.
because I'm a complete nobody.
Yeah, like
I'd
it
be
would have to.
shocked.
Yeah, it's not going to be like some random person posted something anti-Israel on their Facebook page, and like the UK's researching each and every single person. That is kind of the point of the ETA. Is that the majority of the time they're not doing research on people and looking into them. But if you're a public figure and you're big enough to where word gets back to them, then yes, like now it might be a little bit different. But I think the like nobody's going to deny that Israel has like a lot of influence in the United States, and especially I think that like sentiments on Israel have changed so fast that like our government and our representatives haven't changed as fast as the general population's opinion has. But I think it is like I think it is pretty obvious that other countries are going to have more influence in other more important areas, like geopolitically, Israel would have a lot of influence, but like economically, with trade, with technology and military equipment and things like that, like
Might
tons
have
of other
more influence in
countries are just
trade.
going to have a
Yeah,
lot more
like
leverage over us.
Well, that's America having
yeah.
influence over
I was
Israel,
looking
though.
at
It's not the
like
other way around.
Tucker Carlson leaked text message said that like referring to like somebody who got jumped by like a group of people, saying that that's not how white men fight. Like I think there's there's way more obvious examples like Tucker being racist than like Hasan being anti-Semitic, right?
Yeah, but on Fox News, like his public platforms that weren't like leaked text messages or in a lawsuit, he would do dog whistles, and that's why people I know. I mean, even like Brianna Joy Gray defends Tucker Carlson and just says it doesn't mean anything when he says stuff like that, which is crazy. Did you guys see the race in Nancy Pelosi's former district where Scott Weiner won the race over Connie Chem? And he is known as like the lefty Jew who accused Israel of genocide, but then like Hassan said he didn't really mean it. He's saying behind closed doors that he doesn't mean it. And now Hassan says he's going to be the most dangerous House member in the country, this Jewish man who won this race, who's first place right now in the primary. And Connie Chan, the second place winner, who was actually endorsed by AIPAC and pro-Israel groups. Hassan said he's going to support her. So why is he saying the Jewish guy who called Israel genocidal? Why is he saying he is secretly, against that position and he's the most dangerous, possible congressperson in the country? But he's now going to support Connie Chan, who's literally an AIPAC-funded candidate, over Scott Weiner. Like, why? That seems very freaking weird.
Did he
to
give
me.
his reasoning for why he supports one over the other?
He just said he just called him a snake and said he can't be trusted, and
can't-
he's secretly hiding positions.
can't-
That seems a little weird. Why is he endorsing the AIPAC candidate?
We can't parse this out because. Oh, sorry, I can't. Well, sorry,
That's the
I can't parse this out without hearing him actually say those words, right? And hearing the points that he laid out. I'm sure he's like given his reasons if this is even a real thing. But like, I can't parse this out right now, like, and give it some sort of statement. Maybe other
If that's
people
true,
know
that's
more about
if
it.
that's true, that's anti-Semitic. Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, well, we're about an hour and a half in. Do you guys want to move to Platner? Is there?
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
I'm okay.
I guess I don't know anything about Platner, but okay.
My favorite
Platner
guy.
is a interesting dude, man. Interesting dude. I think the last thing I'll say about all of this is that I am curious to see how the UK kind of responds from this. I don't think that the way that they went about this is going to prove the best results if they're not going to stand 10 toes and just like outright note that these guys are very harmful for X, Y, and Z reasons. If they're in the country trying to sweeping, or at the very least being neutral regarding Hasan Piker and his influence, then especially in comparison to the first time he went over there and it was just yapping about nothing, this time him not going over there and now everybody's in a riot and he's on all the mainstream news, that's how you get his name out more. He's not that known mainstream, but if he's on mainstream cable, and all the people who don't go on social media every day are going to start learning about the name Hasan Piker, who was denied because of the Jews. So that's problematic in the UK. Probably fucked up there, I'm not going to lie.
Okay,
To be
did you
fair,
guys want to give like closing statements real quick, Prime?
Oh, okay. Well, I was just gonna quick respond to that. To be fair, I don't think the reason why was to necessarily like shut down like his speech, right? So I don't think it even matters that he gets a bit of a platform to them, right? Like at least in terms of their goals of keeping him out, right? Like, so like I think that's kind of incidental. Oh, that doesn't mean it's not embarrassing to them though, for other reasons. But yeah, but I mean, a quick closing statement, I guess. I don't know. Uh, this is.
Well,
I,
yeah. If that wasn't your closing statement, I'll let you go last then.
okay.
After them. So yeah. I guess we'll start back over and let Joel go first.
Yeah, I say this. I have these opinions because I'm sick of going on or watching TV and seeing a bunch of different foreign influences battling each other. Like you could tell often who is possibly paid by Israel or Russia or China, and it's very annoying. And I'm sick of the attacks that you are anti-Semitic if you support Israel, and that you are a rabid genocidal maniac if you or if you are anti-Israel, you're anti-Semitic and you're a genocidal maniac if you do support Israel, or even if you like have an opinion that is like a two-state solution, being called a genocidal maniac by the far left on the internet, it's not good. Or Mallory McMorrow in Michigan being called genocidal is really bad. And I think people like Hasan hurt our ability to criticize Israel and actually hold Israel accountable and put the Israeli officials that are war criminals in any place of accountability because they are useless politically. They have dumb statements that are also they seem to be biased. Call it anti-Semitism, call it just like dumb populist slop. I don't think it's very beneficial. But I'm not like I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle. I'm a centrist. I'm just kidding. But yeah, thank you, Tom.
All right, Scratch.
Yeah, the closing statement is I believe that this is a mistake on the UK government's part. I don't think it's gonna help them in any way trying to achieve what they're like trying to achieve, which is apparently for the public good, right? As writers over there that Arad rattle. This is just gonna like boost us on, and it's probably gonna spread more anti-Semitism if anything. So yeah.
All right, Riddell.
Oh, I get two closing statements. I'm that special.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, my second closing statement is that Hasan sucks. All right, Prime, it's your turn.
um, I don't, uh, never like, so one thing that when, my friend, Tom hit me up, right? Like, for one, I was happy to hear from him, right? I've missed him, but like, two, I was, unsure as to when to join because if to join because I don't like coming out here defending like personalities, right? Because then you start to have to like to co-sign all kinds of things you don't like feel like co-signing, right? Like one, I don't watch Hasan, right? Like I don't know all things. I'm sure since especially the guy streams so much, he says all kinds of like wild things that I would disagree with, right? And I don't want to have to co-sign any of that, right? I'm much more familiar with Cenk Uygur, but still, even then, like I definitely don't agree with all. I can definitively say I don't agree with everything that Czech says. So I don't want to be like stuck in a position of defending people like this. I avoid that drama. But this was on like the tipping point for me because like it was on something that was more real, like on censorship, right? On the use of state power, on Israeli influence, right? If that indeed was the case here, right? So like that's why I agreed to join. I think you know I agree with what Scratch said that like it's kind of difficult to say like who has more influence specifically in the United States, right? Like China or Israel. It's hard to like necessarily judge these things, right? It could be, as our friend Tom said, like different nations have different spheres of influence, right? Like China might have a lot more influence on our trade decisions, right? Maybe not in a direct way where they can just send out representatives, right? But like through their policy, and then the U.S. having to be reactive because so many of our industries rely on them. But in any case, right, I think it's undeniable Israel has a ton of influence within our government, right? That's just a ton, both directly and indirectly through its supporters, and it's it becomes difficult when again like when we're talking about some sort of governmental process that none of us have any sort of insight into, right? Was was Israel involved in this? It's hard to say, right? But the thing that we can talk about is like, well, other points in time where Israel had a clear level of influence, like and um, it used its muscles, right? Its political apparatchiks used their muscle to get some sort of policy point across, right, or some sort of action that aligns with Israel's interests. And I think that we should be able to discuss those things without it being labeled as anti-Semitic.
All right. For the next one, a New York Times article came out detailing allegations from former partners accusing Maine Senator candidate Graham Platner of physically intimidating behavior, violent rhetoric, and controlling actions. An ex-girlfriend even claimed that he knew what his tattoo meant, that he called it a Totenkopf, and also called it his Nazi tattoo, after a Totenkopf tattoo was found on his chest about 6 months ago, and he claimed he didn't know what it meant and immediately had it removed. Lots of Platner supporters have come out calling this a liberal, pro-establishment hit piece from the New York Times to stop Graham Platner from winning and possibly even helping Republicans win just to stop the progressives. We got you guys here to talk about it, so we'll go in the opposite. Well, we'll shake it up a bit. We'll have Scratch start us off on this one. Let us know what your thoughts are.
I don't know a lot about Grant Platner. I do remember the tattoo story. I doubt that he didn't know what that meant. It just sounds like right wingers are crying again because one of their guys exposed for like molesting women or whatever, which happens all the time. So I don't. Seems like the usual Republican politician outed for being misogynist.
He's
and,
the
like,
Democrat, though.
doing
He's a
discuss-
Democrat.
Oh, Democrat?
Democratic
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the big
he's a-
thing.
That same thing.
Yeah,
honestly,
he's a
I
progressive,
know
farther left
a lot-
candidate.
It looks very coded. It definitely does.
I thought it was right. I don't even know who he is. Yeah, honestly,
That's
that
not
sounds pretty
good,
bad.
by the way.
Sounds bad. Sounds like he did it too. So
Okay, Riddell.
Okay, I want to specify a few things first. We still got, once the primary is officially over, June 9th, all behind Platner. Everybody got to be behind Platner. MAGA needs to lose. Susan Collins needs to lose. I want everybody to be very clear about that. With that said, the whole idea of Platner playing victim for his own mistakes kind of pisses me off, and it does seem very Republican coded. I don't like that. I'm not saying anything he's done is like irredeemable. Especially considering more than likely he's going to be the primary candidate, even though technically you can vote for Jeanette Mills and do what you want. And the Nazi tattoo and is not okay. I wouldn't have chose him for my primary candidate if I had the choice, but it is what it is. And then the stuff regarding the women with like sexting women while you're married, not okay. And then the whole thing about him being like kind of aggressive with women, not abusive, kind of aggressive. It's one of those things that if you saw it on the street while you're walking by, you go like, bro, chill out. That's probably what you would say to Platner when he's with his woman. So in every sense of the word, with Platner playing victim, playing defense, and not owning up to his mistakes, I don't trust this guy. But we live in 2026 and MAGA's worse. So once he wins the primary, I will be all in for Platner for sure. That's all.
All right, Prime Kais.
I recheck what Dell just said. I reject roundly this idea of blue no matter who. He didn't use those words, but that seems to be the sentiment. That I think you should have standards, and if a politician doesn't meet those standards, then you shouldn't vote for them. And here's the thing. Graham Platner, his policy position is very much aligned with my own. He's seems to be a staunch progressive, and I love the things that he's been saying, right? And I'd vote for him if I could. But like still, right? I'd say to someone else if they were going to ask me about it, oh well, do I need to get behind him Like I have like if Riddell came to me, right? Let's say we were both in Maine, right? And he was unsure of himself. He'd ask me like, I really don't like this guy for these lists of reasons, right? Should I vote for him? I'm like, well, no. If he doesn't align with your values, then you shouldn't. Screw this of a blue no matter who. I stand on this as a principal position because actually it's usually used against progressive and leftists in the reverse, right? And that like we were given completely substandard, awful political choices from the corporate Democrats. And they said, well, you just got to support us, right? You just have to. No, I refuse. You don't have to, like, you have to meet some sort of level of standard, right? And each person gets to decide what that is for themselves. And so, like, yeah, that's where I stand there. Whether Platner is necessarily being or not owning up, like that seems wild. Like I'm keeping track of his statements. He actually takes a lot of responsibility for his past. He's done multiple interviews and made multiple like direct to camera statements where he does like exactly that. He takes responsibility. It's like, yeah, here's the things that I did in the past, and then sometimes he talks about things that he didn't. That like, oh, I reject this. Like he talked about like this latest hatchet job, honestly, by the New York Times, talking about like he yanked this woman from this car, this Republican operative, craziness that this piece was. So I reject that. That being said, one thing I will agree with, one thing I definitely will agree with, is about the Totenkopf. I think the Totenkopf, I think he knew beforehand, right? He pretended he found out just when like the controversy kicked off, maybe soon before then. But I think he actually did know before that. So like if there's anything I would definitely criticize him on is I think he lied to us as to like the timing of when he found out. Exactly when he found out, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it actually aligns with was in this latest article. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I don't know. But I don't think he's being truthful then. But I'll leave it there.
All right, Jola.
I think every time we talk about Graham Platner, we need to always say over and over again that the only reason Graham Platner is even a politician is because Republicans have totally just like let go of every moral standard in the world and every standard for a politician ever. Graham Platner has 1% of the controversy as Donald Trump, and he actually was a combat veteran. Like he experienced IEDs blowing up and seeing his friend blown up by an IED in front of him. Donald Trump is just an old nepo baby who is attracted to younger girls, to like little girls, including his own daughter, who he called sexy at the age of 1, and said she had sexy legs and maybe sexy breasts. Once they develop, we'll see. So nothing can be even compared there. Now, this Graham Platner story, many of the controversies are very troubling, but this New York Times piece is pathetic. It discredits the idea of holding men accountable when they do abuse women. This journalism, if you can call it that, they started off by saying that there's, I think, like almost a dozen women, and a majority of them came out to say Graham Platner was a loving partner, and they are friends even to this day. And 3 said they had bad experiences with him. 1 said that he was toxic and did not like women. Another said that he came home too drunk often, which he admitted he self-medicated with alcohol after serving and having PTSD. That's what he said. And the other is the operative that was just mentioned. And she is currently plotting right now how to take him down on Twitter very openly. She claims the New York Times piece was an attack against her. She's trying to make this into a big right-wing media story. So maybe this happened, maybe it didn't. The comments on social media that Graham Platner already said already revealed everything this article revealed. And the idea we're going to now have Republicans sharing post suggesting that Graham Platner is a sexual abuser when that's not even an accusation levied at him, it is insane. And the New York Times said they read through this woman's diary, they read through this woman's text messages, this woman's social media accounts, all of her private DMs. They found zero ability to corroborate anything she said from anyone at all. And the idea that someone like Platner is abusive in one relationship out of 12, it's very unlikely. And by the way, we should not ever start with this person is a political operative and that's it. We should not discredit somebody because then every Donald Trump accuser would be discredited. The believe all women thing means you start off at the point of believing and then you make sure you don't openly discredit before giving an honest look at the situation. You can't just say there's nothing at all here because I don't like this person or because it's a woman or because they're a Republican. But when you dig into it deeper, no corroboration and it's just the standard of journalism for such huge accusations, and then like the idea that you have a dozen partners and you only abuse one physically, it's very unlikely that happens. It's usually going to be a trend across different partners. Not one other partner could corroborate, not one message could corroborate that he was physical with her. If that comes out, I'll change my opinion, but until then, I can't just go off accusations with zero corroboration whatsoever.
Wait, so I'm a bit confused of what your issue is with the article. Like, the article didn't make claims as though they were corroborated and then say they're uncorroborated. They even like quoted numerous girlfriends who said that he was a great boyfriend, that they never had any issues with him, they were still friends with him. It didn't seem to be like a full hatchet job like you said. It seemed to be that they were like saying these people have these accusations, we can't corroborate them. There's some people who just have their opinions about him, they used to date him. And that, like, you know, the most I think revealing thing was the girl saying that he used to call his tattoo his Nazi tattoo or whatever. But outside of that, yeah, the rest of them didn't seem to have much behind them, and those accusations were likely going to be public one way or the other.
Because in the year 2026, what happened is, okay, this article came out. New York Times sent this out to their push notification. They're extremely important breaking news. Okay, so everyone on their phones had a ping if you have New York Times on there. So this is for New York Times' like hugest breaking news, like huge scandals, huge everything. They saw on their phone multiple women accuse Graham Platner of like disgusting behavior and abuse. And they make it seem like every woman in there accused him of doing like heinous activities. And in the year 2026, every headline. Yeah, the title and the presentation of the article is like super extremely devious, and now Republicans are sharing a quote where he said a dumbass internet. You know, it's such a if you know former Marines, it's such a Marine thing to say that he would sexually assault someone if they broke in. He wouldn't just like attack them. You know that, and now Republicans are sharing a quote of him saying, "If they came in, I would rape them," and it makes it seem like
I think they're sharing it because
to,
they're consider going inside of his house once they.
They're sharing a fake. They're sharing a possibly fake quote that's not corroborated, accusing him of accusing Graham Platner of rape everywhere right now because of the New York Times title. Like it's insane.
Yeah, I just went to like from a private browser window and went to the New York Times article. That Times article, right? They made sure that's not behind the paywall, right? Just about everything about the New York Times is behind the paywall. This one isn't behind. I can read this full article, and it's not behind the paywall. They want everyone to see this, right? They with the title of and the exact title for other people who haven't read it. Several women who dated Graham Platner recall, quote, unsettling, end quote, behavior. And subtitle, the Democratic candidate for Senate in Maine could be charming, women said in interviews, but some found his actions intimidating and disturbing, right? And then Jola did a good job of summarizing the actual contents of this article. First of all, the contents aren't going to be read in that same way, which is, you know, not necessarily the New York Times' fault, but still, right? Like then it makes it incumbent of you to have an actual accurate title. But two, right? The existence of the article itself is the hatchet job, right? Like what other candidates do they like canvass their entire dating history, right? Unless they have like some sort of history of sexual assault, right? Then they're trying to corroborate that. Oh, okay, this candidate has been accused of assaulting women, right? Well, then it makes sense. Hey, let's go back into their history, right, and see if we can find some others. I think it's happened one or two times in the past, but that's actually not the case here. But what we have, but like if you're a person who like follows these things at all, right? And what you're seeing is, oh, they have gone back in his past. I guess there must be something there, right? Well, they try to corroborate. How is he a badly treated woman, right? And like the big thing, what they have here, right, is by their own account an completely uncorroborated story of like he yanked this woman out of a cab that she didn't want to leave apparently, right? And that he like in another separate incident he like twisted her arm behind her back, right, and then like pushed her into a room and closed the door and told her like she has to settle down, right, making it sound like, oh, he locked the woman inside a room and she couldn't leave, right? Except that like later on in the story that she she says, "Oh, I just went to sleep, but then I woke up and I left." Because she wasn't locked into that room or anything like that. Like this is her own account, own uncorroborated account, right? But what the message is, and I know this because I have someone on my goddamn panel, right, on Monday, who's probably gonna bring this up, right? Who brings up all these like this nonsense, like these like implications, saying, "Oh wow, it seems like Graham Platner is some sort of danger." He brought up the during our last stream, he brought up the sexing thing where Graham Platner like had cheated on his wife, and this was like made public like last week, right? As if that fucking
Mhm.
matters. This dude is a MAGA Republican, and he's like lecturing us. Like, could you believe it? Like he was sexting. What kind of politician would do that? Also, Donald Trump is the greatest. Like, amazing.
So
Well,
eventually, I
to
want
me,
to
yeah, go ahead,
address.
Rizzo. Go ahead.
So eventually, I want to address one of the points you made about like vote blue no matter who, and my perception of that later after. Um, with that said, I mean, Platner, my big thing here when it comes down to this situation, and this in particular, I have a very important question that I'm curious that you guys are going to answer, is that before this, before like this other stuff, the only reason why I brought up what I brought up, and I think we all kind of co-sign like should have been honest with like the Nazi stuff and all that stuff. All that denial did not look good, especially after this article came out. And then you should have when like the whole like sexting stuff came out, you should have just been like, "Hey man, for the most part, I made mistakes. We thought it out. We're better off. I'm stronger." A year later, and I do think there is some validity. I do think there is some truth that maybe Genevieve was pissed off when she posted and was talking to people about this because of everything that happened with their falling out. I think that's fine to say, but at the same time, you did stuff that's probably not good to most people. Most people do not like cheating. So just been honest instead of blaming everybody else for your own actions. But the big question for this one is if the label of Republican operative is put out there, and you guys are talking about how it's uncooperated. Do you think it's the best for Platner to just do denial, 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 and he said, she said? Is that his best campaign strategy for this in particular, especially considering his already kind of like declining reputation with the Nazi stuff, with the cheating stuff?
His
Is
position
denial
declining.
his best way to go
It
about it?
declined.
Genuine question for you guys.
His reputation isn't declining. His polls keep rising. Like he's on a upward trajectory this entire time. We'll see after this latest hit piece. We'll see what happens there. But like again and again, it's
I
been
think he
proven.
went down like 3 points after the sexting stuff came out. I believe he went down.
Maybe you have more information than I did, so I'll leave that there. But like in any case, I would say like if he didn't do it, then this he should deny it because they didn't do it. So well, she shouldn't admit to something that he didn't do if he didn't do it, right? If he did do it, then I don't think it's a good look. Then he should say like, yeah, this was maybe I don't know what his excuse would be, right? But like, hey, this is where my mindset was, and like this was an unfortunate behavior, and there's no excusing it, and I will be better in the future or something, right? Depends. None of us knows because it's a completely uncorroborated story.
Also,
I mean,
the
to me,
woman
I
who
think
made the most.
well, I was gonna say, I think that like to me, the bigger deal is I don't think it's all that wild that this is coming out when I think this is gonna get written one way or the other, and I think that the way that they wrote it wasn't so bad. And I think that I would rather them the way that they wrote it and the way that they talked about it and saying that it was uncorroborated and like having other perspectives from people that didn't have negative takes from him, that I would rather that if coming from the New York Times rather than it coming from the New York Post in the general election. And I do think that also the fact that like they were literally in a meeting like where Democrats were worried that there was going to be more stuff coming out about him after all of the other controversies, that like this came out. I think it ended up being good timing for him, and and ended up being just kind of like the best scenario for this all to take place.
I was gonna say is it seems desperate and it really discredits our efforts to make sure that men are not abusing power. And there are legitimate things to worry about with like Graham's personal history that he needs to address. But the women behind this, like they are on the record celebrating political prisoners in America. You know, detaining with unmarked vans, random students who are like pro-Palestine who write op-eds about Israel. So they are on record saying they want political prisoners in America over thought crimes. And also
You talking
they're
about the
from the Ladies
Republican lady?
Yeah, yeah. The group of women who are kind of working together to try and expose Graham Platner. They're also from the
Independent
Ladies.
Women's Forum, I believe it's called.
The Independent Women's Forum, where they made a Ladies for Kavanaugh group, and they designed Heritage Foundation plans to help discredit the survivors of sexual abuse. So these women have spent their entire lives trying to embarrass and ridicule women who have survived sexual abuse, and tried to help people like Trump survive, stuff like this. And now they're plotting on social media about how they can make a big social media hit about it. It just seemed, and the New York Times article, the women who wrote it are extremely pro-Israel and extremely like there are articles about like feminism and women's issues. Why would they ever? They went as hard as they possibly could with the evidence they have, and I think it's for legal reasons that they turned up this huge story, and DC and everyone heard about these huge Graham Platner revelations that were going to come out, and they did what they could, and I think they had to chip away at the original story that they were going to try and sell because they had no corroboration, and Graham Platner's lawyers probably contacted them and said there's going to be a lawsuit coming their way if they make all these accusations without any other testimony from partners, the majority of partners that had a good experience with Graham Platner and say they're still friends to this day. I think this is the best they could do in a negative light for Graham Platner, and it just seems pathetic. And honestly, the more concerning stuff Graham Platner has said and done is going to be pushed under the rug, I think, because of this article being so pathetic. Like, honestly, I think this is going to help him in the long run, because if you read this article, it is genuinely, like, why would New York Times use the biggest pedestal they have? The biggest pedestal they have, and these are good journalists, the women that did this, whether you agree with their positions or not, these are really good journalists, and that's why they couldn't just lie about certain things. But why put it on this pedestal and use their push notification? That's a big deal. If New York Times gives you a push notification, that means there's some real shit going on or a huge report. And why would they even publish this in
a
general?
big deal that like this guy who's already had like a bunch of controversies in the past, that he's already had every interview that I've watched him in, every single one, they've asked him, is there going to be more? Is more going to come out? Every single fucking interview, because there's been so many things over and over, and then the sexting thing came out, and then this, and so there have been just like a lot of controversies for the short period of time that he's been there. None of them are groundbreaking, none of them are massive, but like, he's a new person, and he's running in the most like important seat for Democrats in the Senate. It is a big deal if anything small comes out about him right now.
There's nothing about Ken Paxton though. Like,
yeah, Tom, he's like being fucking railroaded. Exactly. Yeah, Ken Paxton.
Wait,
right? Who's got like a fraud scandal along, like with his mistress, right? Like Ken Paxton doesn't get his attention, right? Like you're saying like they keep asking, well, anything's going to come out? Yeah, how is he supposed to?
Are you serious?
That?
You're saying I can't go find a bunch of articles about Ken Paxton and all of the fucked up shit that he's done?
No,
you
don't know what New York Times did though. This pedestal they put it on, this huge breaking news, you have to look up what that really means. Like what push they gave to this story, and the big fuss about this story that was going to drop about Graham Platner.
Yes, you're talking about new information versus Ken Paxton, though. You're talking about new information of the most important seat in the Senate versus Ken Paxton that we already know about.
Hold on. What's the? Hold on. I hear what Joel is trying to say. Now, like I've never heard anyone make this argument, but I don't know. Like I'm not a New York Times subscriber, right? So like I don't know the levels of breaking news here, right? But like taking his words at face value here, right? Like you're saying this is breaking news, right? Like, hey, like there was some sort of terrorist attack somewhere in the United States, right? This is top level breaking news. And what is the breaking news? Well, let's look at the title here. Well, several women dated Graham Platner, recalling quote unquote unsettling behavior, right? Oh my God, this must be some big stuff. Like, what did Graham Platner do? What was he up now? And you go into the article, and it's an uncorroborated yank on a woman's arm. What? No, actually, none of this is not a properly scaled response, right? Like, not that it can't necessarily be an article, right? Maybe it should be an article. I don't think it should be. I think this is a worthless article, but still, right? But even then, like, and again, it's not behind the paywall. I go to New York Times all the time, and I'm not a subscriber, right? I have to like manage their paywall constantly. This one isn't behind a paywall. All of the articles are behind a paywall. That means they wanted everyone to see this one. Like, what are we doing here? And we're pretending like there's not some sort of special treatment happening? No, actually, I think the establishment has a big effing problem with Graham Platner. That's why they're trying to find anything on this guy, and they keep failing.
Tom,
all of
just
their
to phrase
biggest
it a different
stories are
way.
things that I find that end up not having paywalls behind them. I also have issues with their paywalls a lot as well. But when they write the stuff about like Donald Trump, they had a couple articles about him over the last year that were massive articles. Also didn't have paywalls behind them. And on the push notification thing, they're doing that based on whether or not it's a big deal in the moment, whether or not a lot of people are going to want to read it. It's obviously a business decision that, like, yes, if they're able to get more people to read it, obviously that's the same thing with the title, that they're just trying to get more people to read it. But the fact that Democrats, Senate Democrats, were already meeting with him on that day to have this conversation with him and talk about whether or not there were going to be more controversies, and like this was already a big concern. To say that like, oh, it's just a hatchet job, that just seems so ridiculous, dude.
What did they prove?
Do you
Okay,
think it's
imagine 60
reasonable to
minutes.
say that they did this because Platner is a bigger story? I'm not saying it's
exactly.
okay, but
Yes,
you think
that's what I'm
that's a
saying. Is
reasonable
that
thing
he
to
is
say?
a bigger story, that because he's already had controversies, because people are already expecting maybe some more to come out, because he's already meeting with Senate Democrats to talk about the controversies, because this has like been stuff that has been surrounding his campaign since he came out, because just last week there was the sexting scandal. Like, yes, there is. It is a big story that is going to get a lot of eyes
Okay,
on.
you have to understand, this particular story was investigated for months and months and months and months. Okay, this is like if 60 Minutes before the acquisition, if 60 Minutes did a special report, a huge primetime special report, and they said there are severe accusations against this man. Well, a majority of his partners say he's a kind and loving person, and they're still friends with him even after breaking up. But there are 3 women. One says that he drank too much. One says that he had bad opinions about women, and another said that he physically abused her. What evidence do we have? We have no evidence, and that was 60 Minutes tonight. We have no corroboration. And remember, they look through this woman's diary. Okay, they look through her diary, her text, her social media accounts, and these are good journalists who did this. They are very ethical in their practices, and again, you can disagree with them and their positions, but they know what they're doing, and they knew they could not push it further than what they did. So why would they choose this for the primetime, New York Times version of the 60 Minutes special? And honestly, I think the other Graham Platner stories would be a bigger thing to focus on, about the way he talks about his time in war and combat. I think that's a bigger story. But they can't attack him from angle of like veteran that now has PTSD, so they have to try and make him toxic to women voters. And I think there is a lot about Graham Platner that if you're a woman or black, where you're like, holy shit, if this candidate was a white woman or a black woman or a black guy, there's no way in hell he would be surviving this primary. But yeah, I mean, the white man, especially in Maine, has like the Donald Trump effect where he just streams through it. And it helps even more because, it's a more honest approach than what Trump did, just steamrolling everybody. Because when you say you're a veteran with PTSD, many people are afraid to attack it from that angle. So they need to bring in, this other huge report they spent months on. But they had this date in mind. There was hype everywhere, tons of hype, a huge revelation is going to end Graham Platner's campaign. It came out as a dud because they tried forcing a story that was not there. And again, maybe it is there someday, but what the hell did this article reveal to anybody at all? Like, what did it reveal?
The uncorroborated aspect to me doesn't matter all
exposure?
that much.
The NYT piece.
I agree, it doesn't matter much. I mean, you have to admit, everybody's talking about it, even though it doesn't matter. I think people kind
Well,
of
no, I'm
undermine the
saying
validity of
to
this
keep
exposure.
repeating that it's uncorroborated as though they shouldn't have said it anymore. That doesn't, like, normally for like, if they accused him of rape or something like that, or if they said that he was like beating her, punching her in the face, sure, maybe I would want some sort of more evidence for that. But when they say like, yes, he jerked her out of a fucking car, I don't know that I'm like, oh,
that's a big accusation,
no, it's
dude.
not.
That's a big accusation.
No, it's
you don't think it's a big
not.
accusation to say somebody grabbed the girlfriend by the wrist and threw her across the room and locked her in her room? Like, what the hell?
I came to
That's a
this
huge
conversation
accusation.
unprepared, and you
You
read
gotta
out the
look past
article.
the guy.
I came to this conversation unprepared. I didn't read the article. I barely knew. I literally just didn't know who grandfather was. And you read out the article, and it just sounded like he molested a bunch of people, a bunch of women. So yeah, that was
Thank
the
you.
exact impression I got from the article.
That's what they wanted to do too. It's a
Yes,
bunch
no,
of
no,
nothing,
no.
but they
Again,
wanted to
from
make
the
it huge.
title, yes, I agree with that. I've already addressed that, saying that yes, they're obviously always going to try to get the
The
most
title
amount of people
quotes that
to,
aren't even
to
real
read
quotes.
the fucking
They're
article.
paraphrasing. Like, why are they paraphrasing bullshit and making it a title for their PR strategy? It just makes no sense, man. Focus on other stuff, if anything.
I mean, like the same, the two women who wrote this article, also they wrote the other one. They wrote the sexting one for the New York Times. Um, they're on the Graham Platner beat, right? And yeah, he sexted. And I'm hold on, let me see if I can find it. This um a quote from this woman who sent in these texts. Um, like this woman who sent in this text, is Miss McDonald, right? She says, um, the United States Senate is not a training ground for adoption. It is a place for proven leaders of moral clarity and integrity. The U.S. Senate? Really? No, it's not. What nonsense is that? Yes, moral integrity in the United States Senate. It's such a thing ever existed, and the entirety of its history, right? But like, it's like this make believe. Like, okay, he sexted. Like, this is the year of our Lord 2026. Yeah, politicians from now on, all of them gonna have sexted, right? Like this is actually something that like we have to actually deal with as a society. Like no joking around, right? Like putting Grant Platner aside. Yeah, we live in a world where texting exists, and then your couples engage in like lascivious text, right? And now we're like clutching our pearls about someone sexting another person. Like, you get fucking real. Get fucking real. That's or what? Like that's such a big deal. And then that he cheated on his wife. Hold on. First of all, let's not pretend like that anyone cares about this. Let's not pretend that Republicans care about this. Donald Trump exists, right? And let's not pretend the Democratic Party cares about this, because they went to bat for Bill Clinton when he actually was not just sexing a woman, fucking a woman in the White House, right? So let's not pretend this is a big deal. Right? Let's stop the bullshit, right? Let's actually talk about why is it that this one person is being investigated for like these tiny know nothing or barely there scandals. It's because the establishment has a big effing issue with them. That's why. He'd be damaging, and they don't mind losing. I'm talking about the Democratic establishment in this case. They don't mind losing that race. They'd much rather have Susan Collins there, because Susan Collins is going to question them on the things that they really don't want to be questioned on, right? Like they are fine. They hate progressives. They hate leftists. They're fine with them losing. Like they aren't like Riddell here. Like if Riddell here is actually a vote blue no matter who, then at least he's like sticking with his morals. If that's indeed his, I don't want to put that in your mouth, but like if that is indeed
I'm not.
his priorities. Okay, well then I won't put that in your mouth. Then I'm sorry. But like for like there are people who are just want the Democrats when they're going to do everything they can. The Democratic Party isn't one of those, right? They only trot that out when it's they're trying to like browbeat progressives and leftists to voting for a corporate candidate that shares none of their values, right? Well, then you have to vote blue. Oh, well, of course you do, right? The Republicans are going to win, right? That's their response. But then Cory Booker is a good example of this. Now I'll wrap it up here, right? Cory Booker is he's a perfect embodiment of this. Cory Booker, who likes to inject himself anywhere he can, right? Get himself in front of a camera, right? Well, when asked about earlier, right? When asked about supporting Zoran Mamdani in his race, he says, "Well, I'm just so busy here in New Jersey, right? I can't be bothered to look into other states' politics. I'm just focused on New Jersey, of course, right? So I have no thoughts on that, right? So he didn't endorse Zohar Mamdani, but then we find him in Michigan, right, interjecting into that race, right, for the corporate candidate against the progressive candidate, and then we find him in
For a mayor? For a mayor? You found him in Michigan for a mayor? Really?
no,
He's
no, not
he's
Michigan.
he's been in so he's been involved in other mayoral campaigns. So like because we're talking about Mamdani, right? We're not talking about a senator. We're not talking about a house member. We're talking about a mayor here. So he's in Michigan for a mayor, right?
No, he wasn't in Michigan for a mayor. I don't.
No, he
So I'm
wasn't.
not sure which pushback is here.
That we're talking about somebody who's the leader of the House. You were talking about somebody who's like normally is has something to say for people who are running for the House or for the Senate. What?
Leader of the House.
He's a Democrat, the minority leader.
He's not a minority leader either. He's within the Senate. Cory Booker is a senator.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said. Sorry, I could have sworn you said Jeffries after Booker. Am I wrong?
No, I didn't mention Jeffries at all. I mean,
I thought you said Jeffries after Booker. Maybe my bad.
No, he thinks all black people look the same. That's fine. I'm messing with you, friend. No worries, friend. But then he interferes in that. Now I'm sorry. Like there was a third race I was just about to bring up. He also jumped into that one for the corporate candidate. Give me a second. I'll have to remember which one it was. But anyway, like apparently he actually can. He has no problem interfering with these races, right? The thing that lines up, right? Oh, sorry, the Grant Platner. Yeah, Grant Platner himself, right? Grant Platner. All of a sudden he's saying, this individual clearly isn't fit for the office. So he can interfere in all these races. The thing that it has in common is that each of those candidates that he didn't want to endorse and warned us about, yeah, they just happen to be anti-Israel. Huh. What a surprise for Cory Booker, who has taken a ton of AIPAC money. Huh.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of my arguments still apply. Yeah, go ahead.
And even also Jeffries. Jeffries, not mistaken. I mean, his district is literally within New York City, right? Like his district is in New York City, and so of course. Yeah. And like, why wouldn't he endorses other candidates on local levels, right? Like, and in this case, like it's for his hometown. It actually would make sense. And then Chuck Schumer as well, the senator of New York City, didn't endorse the candidate. The senator of New York, excuse me, New York State. Didn't endorse the mayor for New York City. Like, interesting how that happened. They've endorsed other candidates on the municipal levels, but not this one. What a surprise! All take AIPAC money. Sorry, Riddell. I talked with you.
You're good. Yeah, I mean, leaving MAGA out of it because they're a bunch of hypocrites. We already know that. We don't really need to litigate that part. I mean, I just don't buy the idea of just kind of blaming everybody else if you're the one who made the mistake. I'm just not interested in that premise by any means. I mean, yeah, there are a bunch of, congressmen that are having orgies behind the scenes. We already know that, of course, sure, whatever. But if I know you're a candidate and I have to vote for you and I find out that you're a cheater, I don't really like that. And nothing about what other people are doing is going to change that fact. So I do think that's something to consider. I've already said that these actions are not irredeemable. I just want you to have integrity about what you're doing. That's my biggest thing here, because if you are not integral with like how you approach this, then I do think there's a possibility of you being dishonest, manipulative, and you're willing to go and do whatever it takes to get ahead. And that's not a candidate I would choose personally. I'm not saying this all applies to Platner, but I do think these are very important things regarding choosing a candidate in general. So I
feel the same every time somebody's asked me about like what I think about Gavin Newsom. Every single time I brought up the fact that he's had cheating scandals in the past, and that's something that I think has worried me. It's a long time ago, but I still end up bringing them up every time because yes, I do think that they matter. Whether or not Republicans think they matter is a very different issue. But I think that for anybody who's running for like Senate seats and they're a big prominent figure, there's somebody who's getting a lot of media attention. He's been doing the rounds all over the place. We've watched so many interviews with Platner on YouTube. Like, this is somebody who's getting a lot of recognition, and he is running in Maine, where the Senate majority is for Democrats is kind of riding on that. That is just a very big seat, and the idea that anybody found out about the sexting or any of the other things that they wouldn't have written about it and put out the article themselves, I just think it's crazy. All journalists, if they had done the work or gotten these leads, they would have gone and put out the same articles. I just think that it's kind of advantageous that the New York Times was the one who put it out, and that they put it out when they did.
Do you think there's a possibility? Hear me out. Do you think there's a possibility that this was all planned to put out all this information about Platner's secrets right before the primary ended to see if he could take the heat, win the primary, and then
they
use a
admitted it
clean
was.
slate for the general. Would
Oh,
you say?
for that reason. No, that was planned for sure to be right before the primary. I would say that is having the unintended consequence of what you're saying. It's unintended, but it is, I think, benefiting him
don't
because it's
know,
happening
because a
now.
lot of people are supporting him. I think he's getting a lot of support to the point where the people are becoming more diehard for the guy. And
Who would have
at the end
planned
of the
this?
day, it's going to be a comparative analysis for
Who planned it?
this election.
Sorry.
Can he beat the MAGA Susan Collins? And a
Who
lot of
planned
people
it?
are obviously against him, are against Susan, the MAGA in general.
What was your question,
across the
Prime?
board.
Yeah, who's I didn't mean to talk. Well, I did mean to talk with you. I do apologize. Whatever. Adele. Who would have done the planning for this?
Like Platner and the DNC, because I do think the DNC is more behind Platner than they are Jeanette Mills. I think
just really-
I personally, now I can't prove this.
No way.
I think no.
Janet Mills.
Let me finish. When it comes down to Jeanette Mills, I think the DNC told her to step down,
It's
They
and
told
they
her to
wanted to
run.
go all in on Platner.
And it's her name is
Janet,
Janet
whatever.
Mills. Don't worry, it's just fine.
And you know, I'm gonna respect her, Janet Mills. I'm gonna respect.
Yeah,
Like obviously,
I
like Schumer was behind Mills.
Yeah. Schumer specifically got behind Mills. That was Janet Mills was the
But
establishment.
I'm talking about Ken Martin. I don't
Ken
know.
Martin?
What does Schumer have to do with this?
Ken Martin,
Is
some
the
sort
chair of the DNC.
No, this
You
is a
think
Bernie
Ken
project.
So I mean I don't. This seems like pretty far fetched. Okay, so now
I don't
Ken
think so.
Martin
So
is,
I can tell you my
it-
rationale, but you feel free.
no, you go.
Okay.
It's fine.
So this is very interesting insight that I got from a conversation I spoke with a candidate. I spoke with a candidate who ran for the Ohio 7th District recently, and I've also spoke with another candidate who ran this year for Ohio 7th District, and she has a lot of gripes with the DNC. One thing that they told me, and again, I can't prove this, but it makes a lot of sense to me once you kind of piece the puzzles together, is that the DNC will choose the candidate they back, and then they will give all the resources to them. And one of the things he told me while we were talking about the Ohio 7th District is, in his opinion, he thinks the DNC told Janet Mills to step down because they see the momentum behind Platner. And their goal is to win no matter what. And they've already shown that they have a willingness to back progressive candidates with like Tallarico, for example. So another thing to point out there is that
I mean,
the other
Janet Mills
candidate I
did
spoke to
step
was-
down very early, like in my expectations.
I
Like,
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because they wanted all the momentum to go to Platner. That's why she stopped her
No,
campaign.
no,
She's
but
still attacking Platner
she
today.
was, but the reason why she stopped is because her
No, she
the
just
candidate-
noted that she's still on you could still vote for her. In the
yeah,
primary.
she's
Why?
suspended. Yeah, whatever. But that's just what you do. You suspend your campaign. But like no one cancels their campaign. That's for like fundraising reasons. That's why they don't do that. But in any case,
Because the DNC stops
yeah,
funding you.
no. I'm saying okay. So like
Sorry.
Hillary Clinton didn't suspended her campaign, her presidential campaign, but it was like still ongoing technically, like years afterwards, because she was in debt for her campaign. You can't like get any money, apply any more money to the campaign, unless it's like not ended, right? So that's why everyone suspends their campaign. But moving that aside, shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Something about Janet. Oh yeah, Janet Mills, like she stopped campaigning because her campaign imploded. She like dive bombed in the polls, right? She got crushed, right? It wasn't like she was like almost there, right? And then like the DNC interfered with the race and like gave her the signal. Okay, it's all over, right? Pull out. No, she imploded in the polls. There was no way she was going to win any which way, and so she just like suspended her campaign.
So the biggest thing for this one is that, again, these are all unprovable claims because we never really know what they do behind the scenes. But the argument here is that in a situation when they have a candidate that they are sure about that has gained a lot of popularity, like in terms of the Democratic candidates, the ones that are really standing out are people like Tallarico, people like Platner. Their just names are becoming very, very mainstream. So the idea is that they want to push them as much as possible. And there is a lot of funding and resources that DNC like organization puts behind certain candidates, and then there is a lot of cooperation that goes on with like certain resources they give certain people in terms of like stuff with like I forget what they call it, like organizations like Progressive Victory in terms of like putting them on a pedestal or whatever. So in this situation for Janet Mills in particular, it seemed like from, or at the very least, the argument is that they put all the resources behind there. Janet Mills, this is what the candidate told me. He thinks that what happened is that they told, "Hey, stop putting everything behind Platner, and then moving forward, we can still figure something out for you because, of course, you're still involved in the Democratic establishment, if you want to use that term. So we can figure out something for you a little bit later on." Now, I do think it's a little bit weird. I think they pushed out all this information. All theoretic, by the way. They pushed out all the information to see if Platner could survive before the primary ended. It started getting a little shaky. So it's like, just in case, Mills may have just put out there that I'm still technically on the primary ballot. But it wouldn't surprise me as like a hypothetical, or at the very least an alternate way to think about this, that this is all prepared by all the people backing the campaign currently because this is the candidate they want to run with. I don't think it wouldn't surprise me that this is the case. I think there's more strategy to this than it seems on the surface.
I even
facts,
with
though,
only
women,
two candidates.
Okay, I come on. Okay, so the journalist who wrote this piece about Platner recently, they spent the entire New York mayoral primary trying to help Cuomo win and attacking Zohran Mamdani. These are just individuals who are not really Democrats. They work in Democratic politics, but if they don't get their way, they'll either sit out or they'll endorse the Republican. So now these individuals are now working to get Susan Collins elected, and that is what their intended goal is. That is what they have announced. Again, the journalists have been attacking the far left for a very, very, very long time in Democratic politics, and they always flirt with Cuomo's campaign advisor. Literally was on I think like CNN or NBC or something, saying that she thinks that Democrats should be voting for Susan Collins. So yeah, this is the Cuomo class of the Democrats coming to try and get Platner out of there. And that's why Janet Mills is still, there and being annoying.
You don't
but
think the DNC
she
has
suspended
changed
her
after they saw
campaign.
the rise of populism?
No, I wish.
I think they have.
She suspended her campaign around like 40% though.
thoroughly.
Like he was at like 60%. It was really only the two of them in the Democrat primaries. Like for that, while that is a big margin with only two people, where she dropped out 2 months ago, at the end of April, like that's a pretty massive. That's a pretty massive thing to do. Like that with that much time left. And the amount of controversies that he had already had, like there was no reason for her to not think that she could have just stuck it out. And
she got her ass kicked.
I'm not saying I do want to note this before. I'm sorry, Prime. I'm not saying this is a fact, but it's just something I wouldn't be surprised as a strategy. Because in all intents and purposes, if Platner survives this, he'll be bigger than ever.
You're missing the context here, Tom. Like, Grant Platner started off with 2% of the vote, at the start because he was unknown. No one knows who he was.
I know.
So I'm saying, but you have to take this into account. So he starts off with no name recognition at the very bottom, right? Janet Mills comes in and with Chuck Schumer's assistant, Bigfoot's anyone else from coming into the race because it's the sitting governor. She's running, right? So she's coming in, and so she has all the support behind her and all the name recognition and at the top of the polls. And then Grant Platner from that position from 2%. Goes to 60%, where she falls to 40%. There was a clear pattern slope here in his favor, and trend. Right there's the trend. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you so much. She is hit with a series of horrible PR moments, right? She votes down this pro women. I think it was a rape kit test bill, where someone can correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe I'm getting things mixed up. But if I'm not mistaken, it was a bill to pass a rape kit test, and she voted that down, and she did she supported all kinds of a series of other things that were like a really bad look, and then like people confronted her. So there was like a bunch of videos of her being confronted by her constituents in town halls, and it being an absolute disaster, and then her not even showing up because she was like too lazy or too tired because she's like a fucking old woman, a geriatric, right? To actually campaign around the state, and so she was just zooming in, right, and then like phoning in her like the whole campaign was a disaster. Actually, it makes
Mm.
perfect sense for her to have left the race 2 months
No,
ago. In that,
I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. I wasn't saying that it doesn't make sense. I was saying that it wasn't. I don't think that it was like such a long shot to where it was like obvious that she had to, because normally that is when like people end their campaigns, is when it's like kind of obvious that there's just no chance in hell that they're gonna be able to come back. And I think with the amount of time that was left here and the circumstances, with the context that yes, like she was running against somebody who had the possibility of just having a bunch of new information continuously coming out about them because they're the new guy, that made it to where anything could happen, especially the closer that the end of the primaries got.
the other thing is that as politicians who have a successful career don't want to go out in a loss. This is like a very thing. Like they'll like leave a race when they think, if they have a strong indication that they're going to lose, because like one, it just tarnishes your legacy, period, right? To take a loss. And two, this may not apply to Janet Mills because she's a geriatric and she's probably just done with everything after this. But like if you want to do something else, right, it's better to not have lost. So like you leave a race, right, before you take the loss, and it doesn't count against you in the same way.
So overall, I mean, this is just like unprovable. So I'm not gonna pretend that it is, but I do think what their strategies are. I do think a lot of this can be focused on the idea that they are shifting to populist candidates just so they can really ensure victory. Because I do think America in general is moving towards that direction. But to address something earlier that was said in terms of like blue no matter who. Yeah, I'm not blue no matter who by any means. For me, when it comes down to it, the reason why I am undoubtedly telling people to vote for Planner, because I don't live in Maine, obviously, is because I'm using the overall analysis of MAGA and their fascist regime. I am one of those people that calls Trump fascist. I call MAGA fascist, of course. So it's not as simple as the individual candidate. It's the whole kind of like situation we are in currently. Generally, if we weren't in this kind of craziness that we are now, I honestly don't care, because if their candidates are, even though I disagree, if they're normal, they don't want to like destroy and erode the country like MAGA does, then I'm like, okay, choose who you are based off your values. I'll be okay with that. But in this situation, I do think we're in a unique circumstance where we have to defeat MAGA in every single sense of the word in every single state. So I'm kind of all the way there.
Yeah, I'm gonna dip out. You guys have a 1v1 debate on this vote blue no matter who stuff. I can't do that right now. I'll die on camera. I do that like every day. But yeah, I appreciate you having
Do
me
you
on.
really?
Who
Who are you debating every day on blue no matter who? Oh,
The
Republicans.
mirror. No, but like in general, that conversation, I've had it so many times in my life. So you guys can duke it out on that one. I
Well,
was
which
arguing Twitter all
side
day
are you on?
I was arguing Twitter with Hasan Piker voters. Obviously, I think power is everything. Democrats need more power. If Democrats get power, we saw after Barack Obama, Bernie Sanders was able to get close to a nomination for president. Democrats only go further left when they feel comfortable with Democrats in power. If Trump's in power, all Democrats are going to do is say Trump causes all the problems, and then everyone will beg for just Democrats. And anyone on the left who cares about their democratic socialism or whatever, who's not vote blue no matter who, is making democratic socialism much less likely in America. It's just a brain dead opinion. I'll be on a Wix panel discussing Graham Platner Monday, I think, with Mr. Mooten against like.
So you
Tully,
are
I
blue no
think.
matter who.
Yeah, I am blue no matter who. In 99% of situations, I wouldn't go as far as like Hutch goes with like Jeffrey Epstein, but like in general, most situations, Hutch has the Platner derangement syndrome, which is kind of sad. It's always sad to see them go to PDS.
He does.
But yeah, have fun with
Nasty
that
word,
debate.
people.
And
Wait, what are
yeah,
you? What panel are you on Wix?
Oh yeah, with Wick, I think Mr. Mooten is arguing on my side with the Platner situation, and then it's against Tali and someone else. I think it's Tali
Is
Butts
that
and someone
the?
else.
Yeah, no, I'm invited on that panel as well.
Oh, you're on there too. Okay, awesome. But yeah,
I don't know if I'm on there. I told him that I'll get back to him tomorrow, but I was just
Love
sent
to
an invite while we were on here.
He does play, yeah.
You or Riddell or Scratch, or he left on my panel at some point. You guys are great. Like I think you guys are good at arguing your points. If that's something you're interested in.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
always
Yeah,
down.
I had a
You
good
don't
time
ever
there.
send me invites anymore.
All right, I'll send you a friend invites and Tom, you never show up, Tom.
I
I'd love
told
to
you
have
the while ago. I said I was like I have to take some time off. I've like my schedule's too fucked up to like commit to things. And then I think I came back a while later. It was like, hey, I'm able to do it now. And I think I even sent you messages like, hey, you got room on the panel tonight a couple of times. Yeah, I was busy for a little bit, but if that was your impression, yeah, I am open again.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'd love to have you. Yeah, absolutely. But you guys are fantastic.
And,
So.
But yeah, if you
definitely
guys want to
interested.
stay and talk about Blue No Matter Who, we can.
I have another panel actually to another thing I'm doing actually. But yeah, hit me accept that friend request if you guys want to join in. I'd love to have you. You guys are fantastic. I would love to get Scratch as well. I think this guy seems to be quite talented. Maybe I can find him or something. But anyway,
Do you know?
yeah,
did you know of him? You said when you came on, you said good job debating liberals, and I didn't know.
You know, he said that like he debates liberals on a regular basis. And then I said that's good.
Oh.
Liberals are the scum of the earth. So that
Okay.
gave me a good impression of him because fuck liberals. But yeah, other than that, yeah, but I've never met him before. All black people don't know each other, Tom. It's okay.
Well, Fatty
Thank
was
you.
supposed to be here. He backed out while we were on here, so we ended up with less black people, which is always a plus.
Yeah, it's nice having an all-black panel tonight.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah. Well,
All right, you guys
I
have a
guess
good
I'll
night.
give myself an outro then.
Have a good night, y'all.
Thanks all so much for
Later, Joel. I appreciate it.
having me. You guys were you were fantastic. Thank you, Tom, for inviting me. It was good to see you, man. I'm glad you're doing well.
Yeah, you
And
too.
it was nice to meet you, Riddell. You're a lot of fun. So yeah.
Likewise.
And then Riddell, do you want to tell people where to find you?
Check me out, Purple Political Breakdown podcast. I got some interesting conversations coming up. I plan to speak with a candidate that's running independent in Iowa for the Senate race in a couple weeks. And then I also plan to speak with someone else. He's like I think he's like a young progressive that plans to run for an Ohio district coming up as well. Don't remember anything else that I plan to do in terms of like my schedule, but I am very interested. I saw Tom your debate with like Pisco and all that stuff. That stuff was getting all nasty regarding Supreme Court packing. So I plan to look into it myself, deep dive it, figure out what my positions really are, and kind of articulate on my podcast at some point.
We were supposed to have a debate tomorrow on that with on my show with some people, but that ended up falling through.
Will you define
well,
justification?
Oh my goodness, dude. Did you hear after he did that for like 20 minutes and I kept saying like, bro, I don't care about the semantics. You know what I mean when I say it. So can we move on? Later, he's like, dude, can we please move on and you guys stop playing semantics? I was like, no fucking shot, dude. No fucking shot. You're killing
You're supposed to be
He's
nasty there.
fucking gaslighting,
like
dude.
What are you talking about, bro?
I didn't,
know what
so
you
I
mean.
didn't see this, Tom, right? Like, I just know how Pisco argues, and wow, this sounds familiar.
Holy shit, dude. It was like
What was your
every
position?
fucking I'm against like the idea of court packing by adding Supreme Court seats, but I'm in favor of like denying Republican seats over and over. I'm in favor of even like removing some of the current justices that are on there. I think that they like a lot of them have met the standard of high crimes and misdemeanors. I think that like there are a ton of things that I'm like so happy to do. I want Democrats to really be fucking up the Republicans if they get the majority. But that's one area where I do feel like there's a bit of a slippery slope for like oscillation back and forth between each side, adding seats to where it is that is like a a nuclear option.
And he wants to pack it then.
He does.
Let's add like 2 to 4.
You go.
My intuition is I probably.
He said he wanted to add like 2 to
justice.
4 seats. Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to add 2 to 4. But I do think you need to figure out a threshold. I don't agree with Pondering and Pisco's position that the oscillation is better than we are now. I do think it can erode institutions to the point of destruction. But I need to figure out exactly how to find a very firm stance, and then
Well, he kept
embed it
saying,
into
what
law.
evidence do you have that it's going to oscillate? Like the Republicans said they're going to do it back. That's the evidence. And he says, well, what if Democrats hold power and never give it back? Then what about that? It's like, okay, yeah, great. Let's just fucking do that then. Why didn't I think of that? Like that was unironically his argument. It's like, well, we can just have Democrats do so well that they'll never relinquish the power. And then Republicans will never have a chance to do it back.
That argument will only have validity if we dominate in the midterms this year. If we don't, then I don't buy it.
Yep. Well, I mean that does seem to be likely right now, but maybe not the Senate. The Senate is where it's a little bit
that's the most
less
important
likely.
one. The Senate.
It is. Yep.
So we'll see.
I have a
what panel are you going to do now?
Oh, it's not really a panel. It's just a small group, me, 2 others, who talk about Maha, right? We call themselves the anti-Maha headquarters, and we talk about whatever nonsense is happening under RFK. The other 2 are like one's a person trained in microbiology, another person is also trained in biotech, right? And so they're like subject matter experts, and they we go over like how the Trump administration is making things more dangerous for us health wise in general. So we've been doing that for a few Fridays. The thing I was going to say though is that I actually have a radical position. I have like a very extremely radical position on this thing when it comes to court packing. My thing is that like we should absolutely pack the courts, but like all the way. Sorry, not even all the way. Sorry, it's not even pack the courts. Pack the courts is actually the wrong term for what I want to do. Actually, I want to radically expand the court. Is what I want to do. Like what? Like put like 50 people there.
I'm in favor of that as well, just not partisan packing. That's where I have an issue.
I would have a structured process for doing this. And the reason why,
that would make
because I'm
sense.
sure you've probably never heard this idea before, is because one, the fact that like we have these 9 individuals, right, who are in the Supreme Court, who, and some people believe it is the strongest of the 3 branches. Like they wield incredible power. Right, and it becomes a big fucking political crisis every time one of them dies or steps down, and usually it's die. And we could like lower the high stakes nature of this if we actually expand the court. And that, in fact, we have.
Are you the person who was mad at RBG for dying?
One of the people were. Oh, I wasn't mad at her for dying. No, I wasn't mad at her for dying. I mean, she was gonna die, right? No, I was mad at her for not stepping off the court.
Not stepping down earlier, but I remember. Okay, yeah. I just remember. I thought it might have been you, but I remember somebody like going off about her dying and like how fucked up it was, and I was like, "Are you really mad at her for dying?" They're like, "Well, once she didn't step down when she should have, then yes, now I'm mad that you fucking died." Yeah.
I'm not mad at her for dying. I mean, she should have stepped down. You're an old ass woman. But this outcome was very much foreseeable, and so I blame it. She has a certain level of culpability. Piker, I remember went to bat for her. He was on my stream when that happened. But in any case, yeah. So anyway, the point is, so right, also just so you understand, is that to expand the court, that means like each member is like less important. Also, all 50 people wouldn't like see each case, right? Instead, what you could do is you could have maybe some sort of lottery, or like you could like pick like for a term these 9 individuals, or however, maybe 11 individuals, see a case for that particular term out of the pool of eligible Supreme Court justices, right? And so like it just lowers the stakes for like who gets to be on the court and how long they'll end up being there, decades or whatever, right? It lowers their individual power in a way, and so it just takes the idea of packing out of the question.
There might be something interesting there. Is you can even outline that each state has a representative Supreme Court justice, and it creates a very fine line that's hard to argue against in terms of like the general like random number people throw out there and like the perfect number for Supreme Court justices. I do think there's something interesting there, and even potentially like the idea of giving a certain amount different cases to interpret. You don't necessarily have to have all of them deliberate, and we can start pushing some of these Supreme Court cases faster because a lot of them take freaking forever. There might be something interesting there. I'm not gonna lie. After initially when I heard it, I was like, bro, they'll take forever. But if you do it in a certain way, there could be something valuable there. I would
You
say.
could have it so like each like until we get to like the number 50 or whatever final number it is, right? You could have that each president for each term that they win, right, gets to put 5 people in the court, right? So like the next president, right, gets 5, and then for his next term, he gets 2 terms, he gets 10. Or sorry, another 5, right? And then the next president, until we reach that full number, and then from there it's just maintenance, right? We like replace them as they get on and off. That means so like if you want to affect the makeup of the court, all you gotta do is win, right? But you absolutely get 5, and so like it's a lot more fair that way. That's my idea.
Interesting.
All right.
Well, can I show you something real quick, Prime?
Oh, sure.
Since we were talking about Pisco and you did debate him recently, there is this clip that I posted a while ago that I thought you're never on Twitter, so you probably never saw this, but
Yeah, I'm never on Twitter.
you might find this interesting.
Okay.
Comes off as like a. Can you hear this?
Yep.
Okay. Comes off as like just a lot of Biden hate. Like they do just nonstop Biden hate.
Man, to be fair to my guy Pisco, to be fair, you can change your mind in 2 weeks. So it's possible. And he was like, bro, Tom made such a good point. I agree now. I agree.
Yep.
So, hey man, shout out
This
Pisco,
fuck.
man.
Sorry, like just thinking about that fucking debate like boils my fucking blood. My fucking blood about how he behaved there. Like that was crazy, right? Like gosh, this man wanted to dodge a question. God, and he like really thought that like he could like dodge me, like that I will let him go, right? And I'm like, I'll sit here for hours and like until you answer this question, right? He was being such a fucking coward. Oh my god! But I love Pisco. I love Pisco. Shout out to Pisco if you see this. But yeah, you're being a fucking coward. But it doesn't matter. I'd love to debate you on something else. But like, just even seeing that, like, it's a problem. Anyway, I gotta go. But have a good one, friends.
All right. Later, guys. Y'all have a good one.